no one has really jumped out in terms of performance. I know the Cardinals like Munoz because I think he has a big arm. He was a starter for Miami a lot last year, and he's kind of slid under the radar up until recently, and they put him on that list. Nick Anderson, another non-roster invite, could break in there. He would provide some veteran experience. So, yeah, the high leverage roles in the bullpen are pretty much decided, but the bulk of the right-handers that are going to take the reps, that's going to be, I think, the most competitive area of camp because there are so many and so many close together.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that was Katie Wu on with us earlier this week talking about the Cardinals' competition for the right-handed side of their bullpen. Alex, they decided, we don't like anything that we see here. All of the options internally, no good. This is not going to work for us. We're going to go to the market. They had said previously, we're interested in going out there and acquiring somebody to help us in that regard. And they signed Phil Maton, guy that is native of, I think it's like the east side, so the Illinois side of St. Louis. He's going to be here in St. Louis. I've been calling for this guy to be a Cardinal for like 3 years. I've been asking, can you just sign Phil Maton? He's cheap. He's good. He's effective. He goes out there and seemingly throws 65 innings every single season. This is a good player that's going to come in and hopefully help you. It doesn't change much about the roster, but it allows you to avoid going to some of those options that Katie just mentioned that are complete unknowns. I'm curious for you guys, when you heard the news earlier today, what was your reaction to Phil Maton agreeing to a 1-year, $3 million deal? The Cardinals have officially signed a major leaguer, baby.
Hey, no, you can't applaud that. You can't applaud that.
Put the hat on.
They signed a major leaguer in the offseason. It was Nick Anderson.
Yeah, it was a minor league invite.
Well, he's on the major league roster, at least for right now. My reaction to it, that's what it was.
That's fair.
It
Remind you of the Matt signing?
Where
BK was like,
it legitimately did nothing for me.
1 year, $3 million.
Less, $2 million.
That's true. No bad 1-year deals.
I think it's 2.
Wow.
I know. What a deal.
$2 million or 2-year deal? $2 million or 2-year deal?
No, $1 million.
Okay, I was going to say, because Mo screams, let's sign a guy to a multi-year contract.
Hot damn.
Even better.
No 1-year deal is a bad deal, apparently.
That's right.
He signed for 6.5 last year.
This does nothing.
Oh, what a deal.
You legitimately just signed a guy that's just going to slide right into the bullpen and probably forget he's there at times.
I mean, he helps you.
Sure, but he's not a late inning reliever.
I think
he's
I need
not
to redo my top 20 list.
He's not.
He would be on it. Absolutely would have been on.
I don't know if he would.
No way.
Relax over there.
You're telling me he's going to be on your list?
How many bullpen arms you put on your original list? What is just 2?
The guy had 2.
Yeah. Relax.
Even make my list.
What are we doing, man?
I was trying to make a joke.
I had Graceffo on mine, so probably I would have flipped those. He would have just been 20th on my list. I think you guys are underselling it. Maton's a good reliever.
That's fine, but it doesn't matter for this team.
Maybe.
Like, the only guy that matters for this team in terms of a reliever is Ryan Helsley for what his role is and what he can get for you on the market, and Ryan Fernandez because he's going to be taking sooner or later Ryan Helsley's role.
And you're saying that because the team is bad, in your opinion? Okay.
Yeah. I would just
make it like that's the backdrop to what you're saying there. My backdrop is I think they could be a little better, and if you think they can be a little better, this is a good signing for them.
Maybe.
We diverge from like the starting point. We're both starting from a different place on go, which means we definitely end at different endpoints.
Like this screams a lot like kind of what the Andrew Kittredge move was, where I was like, yeah, it's a good piece to have, but you got to be competitive for it to be anything worth what you're giving. Like, it's a 1-year deal, $2 million, but to me, Phil Maton doesn't move the needle at all for this Cardinals team. It's just going to fill right into the bullpen of a ton of other dudes that you have in your bullpen.
Yeah, I think that's a fair reaction. Like, I look at this and go, this is a Cardinals move. Because, like, it doesn't have a high velo fastball. It's like the lowest velo in all of baseball when you look at his baseball savant page. He's got decent stuff, but he's more of a spinner, and spinners at times worry me, and he had a high walk rate when he was with Tampa. Fixed that when he went to the New York Mets when he got traded at the trade deadline. He's a fine move to bring into your bullpen, and they clearly did look at it. It reminds me of, what was it, 22? They're like, no, we don't need to go to the market for a DH bat. And they saw their options and went, oh, my gosh, bring in Corey Dickerson, bring in Albert, because, whoa, we do not have guys to DH. It's a fine signing. I agree with Alex. I don't know if it really raises much for your ceiling, but he does provide some stability into their bullpen. And to me, they did need a veteran. I think this clearly signals, hey, Nick Anderson, though is an intriguing non-roster invitee to spring training, his stuff hasn't played up in spring. He takes that spot. He takes somebody else's that's going to be fighting for this. They're down to 2 spots. It makes sense. Bring in a veteran, help out, be like that 6th, 7th inning right-handed guy that you can turn to. It's a fine signing, and if he pitches well and you're out of it, man, he's on a bargain deal that you'll be able to trade at the trade deadline.
He's from Springfield, Illinois, so it's a local guy. He probably wanted to be here, which means he's eligible to sign with the St. Louis Cardinals. Somebody from the text line, 314-399-9646 is the Air Covered Service text line. This comes from the 618. Guys, you're all wrong. This puts us over the top. Hashtag 12 and 25.
Yeah, that's sarcasm.
I think they're in.
No, that's sarcasm.
I want to know what their thoughts are. Like, what Walker's going to do this year.
They also add, BK opens the show by talking about how amazing a guy is. Poor guy doesn't stand a chance getting Tommy John by Monday.
BK almost picked up that hat, so he's not wrong there.
I think this signing helps you. I do think he becomes a usable piece in the bullpen. I think he's probably your third, as of today, your third or fourth best reliever in your bullpen. That is not nothing. For a couple $1 million, it's a good signing. It's a smart signing by them. It allows you, if this team surprises us, and all of us can have different opinions on that, but in the scenario in which they end up being a little better than we expected them to be early on, you don't want to be short a bullpen arm. That sucks, because then you get into the season, you're like, oh, we're like flailing in all directions. The Royals did this last year, where you're flailing in all directions looking for answers in your bullpen, and you lose a bunch of games because you don't have that guy that can bridge the gap to Fernandez and Helsley, and that's a brutal place to be as an organization. So I do appreciate that they went out and signed somebody that can help bridge the gap, but this is not the thing that's going to put them over the top. This is the thing that, if you're good elsewhere, can help you not lose all traction because of what's in your bullpen. And this gets us to the conversation that I really wanted to have here, because no, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Phil Maton. We've spent 5 minutes on it already. That's probably already too much.
Wow.
I was listening to TMA yesterday, and they were talking about what it means symbolically if Victor Scott is able to make this team. And the general premise, at least my understanding of it, was this team doesn't have a lot of exciting or interesting players on it. Maybe they end up being a little better than you expect. They win like 82 games, but you leave it and you're like, it was milquetoast. It wasn't very interesting or exciting. There's not guys that you have to sit down in front of your TV to watch as they come up to the plate, or you feel like they're appointment television in the field, whatever it may be. Victor Scott could be that if he hits the way that you're expecting or hoping that he can. Alex, do you feel that way? Because my guess is, based on your vibe this morning on the Phil Maton signing and generally speaking what this team is going to be in 2025.
Sorry, guys. It's a Blues game day.
It feels that way, but are you feeling the same way that TMA was about this team not being exciting?
Yes, but
not having exciting players.
I do think they have a couple of guys that are exciting. I don't think the team overall is very exciting, because I think their pitch, if their pitching was going a little bit of a younger route, I'd probably be a little bit more excited. Like if we could see a McGreevy and a Quinn Matthews, be a little bit more excited to see kind of what the up and coming is. I think
McGreevy gets you excited.
I don't think it doesn't get me to the point where I'm buying season tickets, but you know what? I'm going to watch when he starts every day because I want to see what the future looks like.
I must be new school, because I watch McGreevy and go, I don't know.
It's something different. It's something different.
That's why I'm not excited.
But it's something
he pitches
different.
to contact, which I hate.
But
do you get excited watching Andre Palante?
Last year I did, yeah, because it was something different.
That's what McGreevy is.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
But I wasn't watching Miles Michaelis anymore. I wasn't watching the same pitchers that Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson. I wasn't watching the same stuff over and over. So, yeah, those guys would have got me excited because it's a different look at what the rotation can be. But I think in terms of position players, there's a couple of guys. Victor Scott's one of them, Mason Wynn's one of them, and Jordan Walker's the other. Jordan Walker is probably going to be a very unfun thing to watch this season. But in terms of what the development can turn into, I think that's where the excitement at least lies. When he steps up to the plate, I want to see if there's room for development with this guy.
Am I alone in thinking they have some fun players?
I think they've got the potential for fun players.
Yeah, I'm not saying they will be, but like,
there's just so many
Jordan
unknowns.
Walker should be a fun player if he develops. Mason Wynn, I think, is a fun player. I know everybody hates him. Lars Newpar's supposed to be a fun player, guys. He was sold to you as a star, and he's not that. And so, like, I get why you watch him maybe through that eye, that prism, and think to yourself, man, I don't enjoy watching this. This is not what I wanted it to be. But he's a good player, and he's a fun player. Avon Herrera, I think, can be a really fun player if you ignore the lack of an arm behind the plate.
Also not going to play.
I think fair. Ryan Helsley is a fun reliever to watch. The guy throws 100 miles an hour with a crazy slider.
But see, I can't get excited for a closer's not fun for me to watch unless the team's competitive.
Man, I
think that's fair.
Like, it's not fun for me to watch the guy pitch every once in a while when they get a win when the team was just in a 6-game losing streak.
But he is, I'm just saying the players that are fun to watch. Ryan Helsley's fun.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Sonny Gray should be fun, right? He strikes out the world.
He gives up home runs.
And he also takes himself out of the game.
Wilson Contreras is fun.
When he's there.
He's a really good baseball player, and he's fun to watch. I think Victor Scott can be really fun. I think Alec Burleson is kind of goofy. He's got a great personality. Like, I think he can be... Why is he not viewed the way... I know what it is. It's the winning. But he should be viewed the way the Big City was. Like, kind of big, burly, like...
Big City played.
It was a middle of the
order. In the lineup?
Yeah, Big City was a middle of the lineup player.
Played last year.
Yeah, last year he did.
I think they have some guys that should be really fun to watch.
I think you should put the hat on.
But it's all about, are they winning or not? And because people don't expect them to win, they're all viewed as losers, which means that they're not fun.
It's not even about like the winning. I want to see progress. So if there's signs of life with all of these guys that you're talking about, this will be a little bit more exciting of a season, like the Blues. We've made that comparison. And I'm not going to be Mr. Scrooge about it. Like, if there's signs of life with this team and Scott looks like an everyday player and Walker looks like an everyday player.
Even if they win 82 games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There will be signs of life because it's like, all right, well, at least you got some pieces. Now, then they'll kind of Debbie Downer me in the offseason when they don't do anything, and then it's the same thing over and over. But I won't get pre-mad about that. But I'll treat it the same way I treated the Blues. Like, hey, I got signs of life in areas I didn't think we had. But if we're talking about a team that is going to be a 75-win team and it's up and down with all of these players, yeah, man, they're exciting. They got the skill set that's exciting. But it's hard to get amped up every fifth day when Sonny Gray takes them on because of his 10 strikeouts when the team's going to lose 3-1.
314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line from the 314. So fun is the goal. Winning is all that matters, guys. This isn't the YMCA League. Also, have you not seen the batting averages in spring? It's just spring is going to be a retort, and I get that, but they suck and they're not fun.
Yeah. YMCA is pretty competitive, though, let me tell you.
Because I kind of agree with them.
The 314.
Yeah. Amen, 314.
Yeah, put BK in his place.
Yeah.
When they were winning, but they weren't doing it in a fun way, you also hated them. So this is where I get confused. They went to the NLCS. Nobody believed in them because they weren't fun. They weren't. No, nobody liked that team. Nobody.
Well, I had fun that season because it was a playoff team, and I was like, yeah, they could do something with it.
Are you talking about 2019 or 2022? Because 2022 was fun and good.
No, 2020, that's the 17-game win streak.
That was 21.
Okay, 21.
22 was Albert's year, where they were fun and good.
Yeah.
And they ended up losing because, we don't have to go through it. But I guess I have a difficult time understanding, like, what it is exactly that fans are looking for. Because I do think that this team and this market has to win in a certain way for fans to truly get on board with them. And I think that requires guys that you have seen win before. It's almost like it's the chicken or the egg thing, right? It's our old discussion about, does chemistry lead to winning or does winning lead to chemistry? I think here in St. Louis, winning or getting to a World Series leads to the team being beloved. But you can't be beloved until you get there. Like those early 2000s teams, they were beloved because they had superstars and they were winning a whole hell of a lot. And so then when they go through the next, like starting in 04, basically, all the way up until 2011, you had similar core players on those teams, and so they were beloved. But prior to that, dude, you were here, you remember, TLR wasn't exactly the man that was walking around town with the most support. He was a guy that a lot of fans wanted fired because he couldn't win the big one, right? He couldn't get this team over the top. So just... I do find it really interesting how you have to win first and then you can be appreciated.
I actually think you nailed it, but it's not the winning. I think the appreciation comes from the belief in the front office. And I think the reason people can't get excited about this team is because of the dark cloud that is John Mozeliak and company. Because the reason we're excited about the Blues, one is what you're seeing on the ice, but two, you feel like the leadership's the right leadership. You'd be a little bit more excited about the Walkers and the Wins and all of these guys for this season if you knew that the guy in charge was making the decisions, the one that you want to be in charge. So I actually think, at least I guess I'm speaking from my own perspective, I can't get excited because I know what's going to happen in the offseason. And until you show me something that happens to where, hey, we've got pieces. Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately for me, they've done this to me because it wasn't this way. Like I wasn't pre-mad when it was the Albert era and when it was even a couple of years after the Albert era because they went out there and got Carlos Beltran. They went out there and said, we can get some pieces. I could get pre-mad because the more I get excited about this team and say, man, look at Victor Scott and Jordan Walker, then it just slaps you back down to earth of like, yeah, but they're not going to do anything.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Tim Britton is joining us coming up at 11:30. He's a baseball writer for The Athletic. He does a bunch of stuff for their contract projections. I want to ask him a couple of things. One, what would it take for Helsley to re-sign here in St. Louis? It ain't happening, but what would it take? And two, what are the contract extensions looking like for some of the stars that we're talking about the Cardinals potentially being able to sign that would get Alex legitimately excited? Again, not doing it, but what would that take? We'll talk about that coming up with Tim Britton at 11:30. He also watched Phil Maton last year in person every single game, so we'll ask him what Cardinals fans can expect from Maton. Coming up next, though, quietly a great outcome for the Blues last night. We'll tell you about it here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and the location that I typically go into, that is in Town and Country. It's a super easy process to set up that first appointment. Go over to their website, victorymenshealth.com. Go to the top right corner of the page, click Book Now, and when you do so, put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them how they can unlock your inner champion today. That means different things for different people. For some, that might mean erectile dysfunction issues that you'd like to get taken care of. It may mean you're dealing with some low testosterone symptoms. Do you walk around feeling like you have less energy than you once did? Are you getting less out of your workouts than you did whenever you were younger? Those could be a result of low testosterone. They can test that for you. Find out where you're at on your testosterone levels at Victory Men's Health. They can also help you with weight loss goals, vitamin infusions. They have a supplement shop, red light therapy programs, and they can even test for cardiovascular issues. All of that available to you today at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, last night was a nice outcome for the St. Louis Blues because the NHL doesn't use reasonable
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Tiebreakers.
What's not reasonable about it, man? The team that wins in the 3 periods gets rewarded with the playoff spot.
Just not head-to-head.
That's
It
correct.
doesn't matter.
You play a team 3 times.
There's 82 games, and if you win more than the other team you're tied with in regulation, you deserve the playoffs.
So for those that aren't familiar with the way that this works, and the reason that we're talking about this is because last night, because of the antiquated process that the NHL uses in order to determine its tie-breaking process.
Hold on. First off, and because BK just learned it today.
Yeah. It's been around since the CBA.
Because it's my life.
The Canucks won in a shootout against the Flames last night, which is, generally speaking, not a great outcome for the Blues. Because if this was head-to-head, and you want the... Anyways, the Canucks won, which means that it gives 3 points in a possible 2-point game, right? So you want fewer points to go around for the teams that you're competing with directly head-to-head. However, because of the tie-breaking process, if the Blues, the Canucks, and the Flames were all to end up with the same number of points this year, it goes to regulation wins, and then regulation and overtime wins. And then what is the third one, Alex?
The third one is regulate. Oh, you said regulate. It's total wins. So the amount of total wins that the team has.
And then, so that would be shootout wins. And then finally, the fourth process that you get to for tiebreakers is head-to-head, which is ridiculous. But let's set that aside for a second. Last night was a good outcome for the Blues because there was no regulation win. There was no overtime win. It took a shootout win for the Canucks to be able to get that one. So all around, good night for the Blues last night, right?
It absolutely was. And I love this antiquated system that they have in place.
You don't really,
I don't even know what word that means. But, I do actually like this one. I think it rewards the teams that win in regulation, and that's the tiebreaker. And typically the reason you see that is because they play everybody in the league. So you just, some divisions you play teams 3 times, some divisions you play teams 4 times. Regardless, that was as close to best case scenario as you can ask. Best case scenario probably would have been just a regulation win for Vancouver because then both are in the same position. But because Vancouver still won and it wasn't a regulation win or an overtime win, that keeps both of those teams within striking distance of that first tiebreaker. Calgary's 2 up on you. Vancouver's 1 up on you, but they're only 2 points ahead of you. Both teams are sitting at 71 points, and now Vancouver has played the same amount of games as you. Calgary's 1 fewer game than you. To me, that was best case scenario for the Blues because 2 points tonight puts you in a 3-way tie with 71 points, and you'll still have a game in hand, 2 games in hand on Calgary. But as you go down the stretch, you're not only in the same point battle with them, but you're within striking distance of the first tiebreaker if you end the season in a tie.
You like that they do it this way? You would be upset if they said in the offseason, we are going to change our tiebreaker process, and it is now going to be head-to-head.
Yeah.
So if you'd be upset by that. Mm-hmm. How come, out of curiosity?
Just because I think the team that wins in regulation deserves to be rewarded. Now, this goes to the 3-point, 2-point, 1-point system,
That's what I was
which I'd be more in favor of, rewarding teams that win in regulation, because then you don't even need to worry about that as much.
Do it.
Exactly. That.
Why are we doing that?
And honestly, that.
And then you can go to the head-to-head being the first thing that you choose as your first tiebreaker.
The hard part for the tiebreaker is, like, let's say you do the tiebreaker with, like, not the Calgary Flames, because all of the Pacifics you play 3 times. But you do the tiebreaker with like a Minnesota team versus a Utah team. Well, Minnesota, you play 4 times. Utah, you play 3 times. So,
well, then if you end up not being able to break the tie out of that, I would say go to goal differential in those games. But if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. Then you get to the regulation wins, regulation overtime wins, all of that stuff.
I think it
should be head-to-head first if it's 2 teams that are directly competing for a playoff spot. That to me makes the most sense.
The hard part, though, is if it's 3 teams competing for that playoff spot.
Then you have to go to the second tiebreaker.
Yeah. Well, and I guess they just cut out the middleman there and they just go straight to the regulation wins. But again, if we could fix this whole system, I could fix it in a heartbeat for you. Go back to 1 through 8 and go to the 3-point system, because now you're getting rid of all of these entities that can affect it.
And now we go to head-to-head.
Yeah.
And then you go to goal differential and
Mm-hmm.
head-to-head games, which would be the second tiebreaker, and then we move on. All right. So there's a hit piece on the Blues goaltending today over on the Athletics. You guys see this?
Oh, yeah. Is it a big hit?
Your boy, Jesse Granger, for the Athletic. He's not quite Dom
He's
level
Dom
hatred.
2.0.
Why do you hate everybody for the Athletic?
I don't. I love Jeremy Rutherford. I love Pierre LeBrun.
Anybody else?
I love Chris Johnston.
Russo?
I love Russo. I love Katie Wu.
James Myrtle?
James Myrtle is okay sometimes.
Unbelievable.
I don't like Granger.
McIndoe, Sean McIndoe.
I do,
think
yeah. Down goes Brown. I love Down goes Brown.
Right.
He put some great lists out there.
So they put out a list of the best goaltending tandems in the NHL. This one, though, comes from Jesse Granger, not Down goes Brown. So, as you can probably imagine, the Blues goaltenders do not rate particularly well. They haven't had great numbers this year. Go by save percentage. Both are below 900 on the season. Makes sense. You're going to have them lower on the list. Here are the teams that have a worse goaltending situation, according to Jesse Granger, than your St. Louis Blues. 32nd is the Philadelphia Flyers. 31, the Pittsburgh Penguins. 30, the Columbus Blue Jackets. 29, San Jose. These are all really bad teams. 28, the Detroit Red Wings. And 27, the Edmonton Oilers. Yikes, guys. 26th is your St. Louis Blues. Alex, the reason that I have an issue with this is because I do think we got to have a little bit of context here. Sure, the Blues goaltending tandem this year has not been what you would hope of them. But if you're somebody that is analyzing this, especially this time of the year, you have to take into account what Binnington is expected to be in the playoffs, right? It'd be like doing a list of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball for down the stretch, and you're in September, and you don't include a little bit of a bump for, I don't know, Madison Bumgarner in his prime or Nathan Eovaldi right now. That would be silly. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. You've got to add a little bit of a bump there, given what their track record is in the postseason. I do the same thing about Binnington.
Yes. I mean, when I look at it, I think it comes down to, I look at different teams and I sit there and I say, who do I want in a meaningful game? Who do I want in a must-win game? And I can think of only one, maybe I could hear the argument on two goaltenders, and it's Andrei Vasilevsky and Connor Hellebuck. Other than that, Jordan Binnington's the one I'm going for. Now, I can understand if you're going off of goalie tandems, because Joel Hofer's had his ups and downs this season, just like Jordan Binnington has had. But I look at kind of the trajectory of what these guys can be, and honestly, the position that they've put themselves in. You take out the first couple of months, which I know you can't do, but that was bad. The last 2 months of what Binnington and Joel Hofer have put together have been up there with some of the other goaltenders, the top goaltenders in the NHL. And like just going through this list, I have to be honest with you. If you went to Craig Berube and said, would you like Anthony Stolarz or would you like Jordan Binnington down the stretch? I think he's going to go with exactly what you think he's going to go with. I can even hear the argument for the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets have Connor Hellebuck, but you know what everybody in Winnipeg is talking about right now? Connor Hellebuck, we hope he doesn't choke in the playoffs. There's only two teams that aren't saying that, and it's Andrei Vasilevsky and it's Jordan Binnington. So I get the list. You're going off of expected goals allowed and kind of the fancy numbers with this. But at this time of the year, I think it's pretty certain the guy that has a better track record of winning in crucial games are the ones that should be at the top of the list.
A little bit of news passed along. This comes from the St. Louis Cardinals. Gordon Graceffo has officially been optioned down to Memphis, so he will begin the year at AAA. This is something that had been referenced earlier today by John Mozeliak. He was asked by reporters, hey, what does the signing of Phil Maton mean for Gordon Graceffo? He was one of the guys that could have been competing for a bullpen spot from the right side, and Mo kind of danced around the question, but ultimately said, yeah, he's somebody that could maybe be in the mix there, or he could be optioned down to AAA and be a starter in the rotation for the Memphis Redbirds. So it sounds like that is their plan. My assumption, and T-Bone, we talked about this a little bit earlier today, Michael McGreevy is probably your sixth starter going into the season. He will start at Memphis. That's my assumption now. Graceffo will probably be the seventh starter entering the season. Libby goes to the bullpen now. Matz is your fourth starter. Palante is your fifth starter. My guess is we're starting to see this thing shake out, and we kind of have an idea on what the Cardinals' plans are heading into the regular season. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers, but we got some questions for Tim Britton, the contract guy for The Athletic. He's going to tell us what it would take for the Cardinals to sign a star in the offseason and how much it would take to re-sign Ryan Helsley. We'll ask him about that next year on 101 ESPN. Let's go, Billikens. I've got a parlay for you guys. It is over on the Circus Sports app in the state of Illinois, and it's got much better odds than if you place the exact same bet over on FanDuel. SLU -4, Arkansas straight up against Ole Miss, Mizzou minus the 3.5, and I'm going to go over the point total in Oklahoma versus Kentucky today. SLU, Arkansas, Mizzou over in the Oklahoma versus Kentucky game. Put $100 down, win $1,800 over on the Circus Sports app in the state of Illinois. Alex, if you place that exact same bet over on FanDuel, what do you think you win?
Let's say $1,300.
$1,500. It's $300 less. You get much better odds when you bet with Circa.
This is what we're talking about. You put together those nice big Ferrario parlays over on Circus Sports Illinois. You're bringing in the most money possible. I'll give you a Blues one tonight. I say Blues -1.5, and I say the Blues over a half goal in the first period. You put those two together, you're bringing in some nice dough over at Circus Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues will be back in action tonight as they visit the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 6 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Welcome in to BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by Tim Britton. You can find his work over at The Athletic. For me, he's the contracts guy. That's the way that I know him. He writes about the Mets as well, but he does great work over there when it comes to projecting contracts. That's in the offseason when we head into free agency. And right now, where it is extension week over on The Athletic. He's looking at all of the players that are young that could potentially be in line for an extension and what it would cost to retain their services. Unfortunately, the Cardinals not exactly well represented on that list, which is symbolic of where they're at with their organization right now and their lack of young players worthy of those extensions, but I digress. Tim, we appreciate the time as always, man. Let's start out with the obvious, which is a signing that we didn't know was coming today when we had you on, but ends up actually working out really well. The Cardinals have gone back to the free agency market for the first time this offseason, and they have signed Phil Maton. For Cardinals fans that haven't seen much of him, you got to see him a lot last year. What can they expect out of Maton?
Yeah, I think the Mets trade for Maton, they traded for him early July last year. It was one of the bigger moves that they made during the season. Their bullpen was flagging at the time. Maton stepped in and gave them a guy who kind of solidified the 7th or 8th inning. By the end of the season, they leaned on him probably a little too much, where he was pretty tired in the playoffs. He's a guy with postseason experience from his years in Houston, a guy who you can count on to give you probably a 2.5 to 3 ERA. Knows big moments in, like I said, the 7th and 8th inning. So just not a guy who's going to garner a lot of headlines, but a really solid piece that I think good bullpens need to have.
Good bullpens that can be competitive in the playoffs is what you're saying, Tim, not the Cardinals?
I mean, look, it's also a guy that you could probably trade at the trade deadline.
Bingo!
Good years, so.
$2 million will take it out here.
I like that one, Tim. Well, the other one that we saw on your piece for the extensions was going through the tiers of players, and it was Devin Williams' potential contract extension with the Yankees, 5 years, $80 million. And us in St. Louis see that and think, oh, boy, Ryan Helsley's going to be talking north of that amount, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Helsley, had he been a free agent, this past winter, is probably, would have been the number one closer on the market. He would have out-earned, I think, what Tanner Scott got from the Dodgers. I think Helsley's you're probably talking about like a $4 for $80 million deal had he been a free agent this past winter. If he puts up another season like he did last year, just continues on the path he's been on for a few years, he can be in the same tier as kind of Edwin Diaz and Josh Hader, what they got, which are 5-year deals close to $100 million. That's a lot of money for a closer, but those guys have kind of proven their worth over time.
We're talking to Tim Britton here on 101 ESPN. Tim, one thing that I'm always curious about, especially now with what we've seen happen in the offseason over the last couple of years with the star talent, is how this market is trending. Where are things going? There was a time a few years ago where it seemed like everything was going to be frozen and we weren't going to see these escalating prices. Well, that has shifted. And I look at your potential contract extensions now. Kyle Tucker, $340 million potentially. I think it's $450 million if the Toronto Blue Jays wanted to get a deal done with Vlad Guerrero Jr. How much has the market over the last couple of years changed for these stars that are reaching free agency?
Yeah, there's really a few things that have shifted. The first is that teams are now willing to pay guys deep into their 30s to kind of offset some of the average annual value. So, for a long time, we'd see teams were not going much over 6 or 7 years for players in free agency. And then you've got, the Padres signing Manny Machado to 2 different 10-year deals. Xander Bogaerts to an 11-year deal. Yu Darvish through his age 42 season. Teams are a lot more comfortable. It's kind of like it was in 2012 and 2013, going, 10, 11 years with guys. And so, when I first started doing contract extensions just 2 years ago, the longest one I would suggest was maybe 8 or 9 years. And now I'm saying, they'll do that for 13 years, 14 years, because teams have started to entertain that idea. And another thing that's happened is like the extensions are not as explicitly team friendly as they used to be. You look at what Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. signed for in Atlanta and compare that to what Spencer Strider got from the same team or Austin Riley got from the same team. How players are valued in extensions has shifted. It's a little bit fairer than it used to be, where there really is a kind of a higher risk-reward threshold there than there used to be. And the third is, Juan Soto added moving the market to the extent that he did. When Shohei Ohtani hit free agency, there was, thought that he could make $500 million, something like that. And in present-day value, he didn't actually move it that much. The $700 million number jumps out at you, of course. But with all the deferrals, it's closer to $460 million. That's an enormous contract, surely, but not maybe pushing the envelope quite to the extent that Soto then did this past winter, where it's $765, and Vlad Guerrero Jr. can say, hey, I think I should make $500 million. After all, that's only 2/3 of Juan Soto. And I think I'm 2/3 as good as Juan Soto, and you can make that mathematical case for him. And so Kyle Tucker can say, hey, I'm at least half as good as Juan Soto. I should make at least $400 million. You can see the way that trickles down for different players.
So, Tim, everything I'm hearing, because we talk in St. Louis an awful lot about, how do you go out there and find that star player if you can't develop him? And if you develop him, well, you're going to be paying him a lofty amount regardless, but you got some cheap years. What I'm hearing is don't get your hopes up, Cardinals fans, about potential big free agent opportunities with the numbers that are getting thrown around right now.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be in the market for Guerrero or someone like that at this point. The Cardinals, their history, a lot of it has been extending their homegrown guys, trading for guys maybe a year or two before free agency and extending them the way they did with Goldschmidt or way back with Matt Holliday. That's been their MO. But, the sands are shifting and the Cardinals have to shift with it. And that's, I think, why they're making some of the front office changes that they are.
I'm struggling with a way to frame this for you, Tim, but how do smaller market teams compete in this kind of a market? Because there was a time not that long ago where you could go to the market and get a guy for, 10 years, $250 million if you're the San Diego Padres, for example. That's a boatload of money, but it is much different than giving a guy $500 or $400 million. Yes, there's some inflation there, but I'm not even sure that takes into account that kind of a jump. How do these teams compete in those waters?
I think it's making the bet on the right player. I wrote about Ellie De La Cruz there. The Reds have a lot of different good position players coming up. And it's not that dissimilar from Cincinnati, 10, 12 years ago when they had a lot of good pitchers coming up. and they decided to extend Homer Bailey. And that was the wrong guy to gamble on. Like Johnny Cueto had a much better career. And so, it's picking whether it is Ellie De La Cruz, who is the guy I would pick, or Matt McClain or whoever else is coming up through that system and breaks out. It's picking the right guy. It's making the gamble probably early and having it hit. There's risk to that, of course, and a risk in a different way than when it used to be, okay, you could sign this guy for 7 years and $80 million, and now it's 12 years and $300 million. That's a much larger risk if it doesn't work out. But I think that, if you really want to compete at this level, you're probably going to have to do that. You're going to have to gamble, and you're going to have to get a good run of luck there, too.
Kyle Tucker is the one that stood out to me on this list. Tim Britton is our guest here on 101 ESPN for just another couple of minutes. What do you think it's going to require? If he ends up getting to the market and has in line with what his typical season has been, if he gets there, what do you think Kyle Tucker's going to cost in free agency?
Yeah, I think this is really an interesting season for him because you look at what he did last year. I think he was a 4-win player. He didn't even play half the season. And so if he does that for a full 162 games in Chicago, if he's an 8-win guy, then you're talking about a guy who's up there with Aaron Judge. And, it's not going to be Soto money. But, again, like we said, he could say, hey, I'm 2/3 as good as Juan Soto. Give me something along those lines for, thinking more about his age. He's not going to be 26 hitting free agency the way Soto was. But I think you can, that contract might start with a 4 if he has that kind of year. Maybe even he talks about a 5. It's a good time to be a star player heading into free agency, especially if you're coming off, especially if you put together a platform season that is one of the best of your career, the way Judge did a couple of years ago, the way Soto did last year with the Yankees. That's when you want to, we've got the opposite of it here with Pete Alonso, who struggled the last 2 years before free agency, and the price came down a lot. As much as these guys are judged over the entire track records of their careers when they hit free agency, if you're coming off your best season or you're trending in a positive direction, that does really change how much you can make.
Tim, all of this talk and the amount of money that we're throwing out there, do you think baseball is going to be headed towards a salary cap at some point?
It'll be interesting to see just how hard line the owners want to get on that after the 2026 season in the next CBA. And look, in terms of for there to be a salary cap, a lot of fans say, I'd love to see a salary floor and a salary cap the way the NFL does it, the way the NBA does it, the way the NHL does it. I don't think there are a lot of MLB owners who want to see the salary floor be 90% of the cap the way I think it is in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I think the NHL is 70%. That's the lowest of those three sports. There's a pretty big disparity between what teams spend right now. And, if the floor is going to be 90%, then they're going to want the salary cap to be $150 million. So I think there's so much variance in how owners feel about it that I don't know that they can get unified enough the way they were for a stretch there in 93 and 94 and 95 to push for it as aggressively as they did then. And from my perspective as a reporter, I hope not. I hope that we have baseball in 2027 and a full 162 games.
Last question for Tim Britton, baseball writer over at The Athletic. If you want to read all of his great work about the contract extensions that are potentially coming, you can check that out over on The Athletic. It's really, really excellent work. He does the same thing going into the offseason as well. It's well worth your time. Tim, I did want to ask you about Brandon Nimmo. I know that might come out of left field because he's a random player to ask about here on St. Louis radio, but I've made the comparison between Brandon Nimmo and Lars Nootbaar for quite some time. They both have high on-base percentages. They both struggled, especially early in Nimmo's career, to stay healthy. How is Brandon Nimmo viewed among Mets fans, especially now that he has a big contract?
I mean, he's viewed pretty positively still. Like Nimmo is the longest tenured Met by a few years now. He's been here since 2016. I think he, as the homegrown guy who's really evolved into a leadership role, it's been fun for Mets fans to see that development over time for him. The guy who, despite being like the 11th overall pick in the draft, didn't have the highest expectations because he was drafted out of Wyoming, out of high school in Wyoming. So to see Nimmo pay that off, I think fans really like him. It'll be interesting to see how that contract ages. He's signed through the 2030 season. And I think when he hit free agency that year, no one really expected it to be an 8-year deal like the one he got. And that's one of those cases where, under the Wilpon ownership, the Mets didn't extend their players when they were younger. And with a guy like Nimmo, who would have been open to that, I think they probably could have saved a lot of money in the long run had they done that. So that's kind of how he's viewed now. And you hope, for his perspective and the fan base, is that that contract ages well enough that he's able to, retire as a Met with a strong legacy here.
It's interesting how two players with such similar production can be viewed so differently by their own fan bases. Hey, Tim, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. We'll talk with you again soon.
Oh, anytime. Thanks for having me.
You got it,
Tim.
That's Tim Britton here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate his time joining us here on the show. All right, Alex, so you excited for the Cardinals to sign a star in the offseason?
Yeah, nope. I can't wait for them to develop it 15 years from now.
5 years, $100 million is what he thinks it's going to take for Ryan Helsley. God bless you. Salute, sir.
Trade
And
that boy now.
enjoy the hell out of whatever your next destination is. Enjoy watching Ryan Helsley for the next 4 months.
Enjoy L.A. or enjoy the Yankees.
Yeah, it'll be one of the two. They can decide if they like Devin Williams or not, and if they decide, we want to go a different direction, congratulations, Ryan Helsley.
Yep.
You are that man. Maybe Boston could be an option for him.
Maybe old Mike
Philadelphia.
Schulte will go get him.
They already have their version of that in Tanner Scott.
Oh, I forgot they signed him.
Maybe he ends up in Philly. I could see that.
Yeah.
Some good markets.
They don't have Tanner
possibilities for him.
Scott. Scott's a Dodger.
Yeah, what is that? I thought Scott signed him.
He was
Remember, if
traded
he's a
to the
talented player,
Padres,
he's
and
in
then he
LA.
ended up going to LA.
Schulte's going to bring him in. Schulte's going to get old
They're going to
reliable.
trade for him at the deadline, and then he's going to sign with LA in the offseason.
That's great. We'll take Jackson Merrill. Who says no?
Yeah, that'll be great. Coming up next, questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 636. Guys, do you think Joe Burrow could legitimately leave the Bengals while still in his prime if they continue to dance around paying the right players while he's there? It's something that basically happened with, what's his face? Former Bengals quarterback, USC, Carson Palmer.
Red Rock?
He retired for a year. Like, literally retired, walked away from football, and then eventually got his trade that he was looking for. I don't think so, though. I mean, Joe Burrow is getting... When does his contract actually become, like, movable? I'd have to look at it.
2028, it looks like.
Yeah, he's got some time before he can do anything like that. For the next few years, Joe Burrow is tied to the Bengals. There's no getting around it.
And, I mean, Joe Burrow can say it all he wants of, you know, you got to keep all of these guys, but you got to put together a competitive team, and you're making a ton of money. So do you want to keep your guys, or do you want a competitive team? And if you get frustrated because the team can't put a competitive roster together, it's because you're paying all the guys that you want to pay. So it's kind of on you, Joe Burrow, more than it's on the Bengals.
I mean, I think it's on the Bengals. They got to pay their guys. I also think they're being stupid. Stop doing this with T. Higgins. I'm sorry, man. I know Joe Burrow wants him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Get rid of T. Higgins.
Yeah, tell Joe Burrow, no, we're not doing this. I'm sorry, but you can have one. You get to choose. Do you want Jamar Chase or do you want T. Higgins? Because we can't pay both of these guys $70 million combined, because that's what it's going to cost. $70 million to keep those two receivers in place. That's absurd, dude. That's like a third of the salary cap in terms of what you're going to be able to use for everybody on the entire 53-man roster.
You're going to be trading the best defensive player on your team because you had to franchise tag T. Higgins and you're wanting to lock him up. And now your defense is going to get worse because you're keeping two wide receivers when in all reality you keep Jamar Chase, you move on from Higgins, you find cheaper options to be the secondary pieces, and you start making a competitive roster. That's what I meant by this is on Burrow. Like,
I got you.
You want T. Higgins.
I thought you meant his money.
No, I mean,
okay.
like, you want T. Higgins on this team and said, oh, we'll find a way to do it. You're getting paid a ton of money. Chase has got to get paid. Higgins can't get paid. And if he does, well, then your team's going to be bad and you can't complain about it.
Yeah, between Burrow, Higgins, and Jamar, those three players, if you say it's going to be $30, $40, and $50 million per year for the three of them, it's $120 million. Your cap is $260 right now.
You could field the roster for $140 million.
Just really hard to do, man. And then if you're also trying to build up a defense that is sustainable, because you can build a good defense randomly over the course of 1 year with just like 1 year additions. It can happen. We've seen it before where it's guys that plug in and then it just works for all of them.
And you can get lucky in the draft. I mean, I'm not saying the Chiefs were lucky, but look at what the Chiefs did, right?
Absolutely.
Rams kind of did this to an extent too.
The Eagles.
Eagles
did
it,
just did this last year where they have a great draft, have some 1 year deals that hit right like that, and then boom, suddenly it all takes off. You can do it, but it's really hard. And then the next year, you're probably going to stink. That's where things get really difficult for you. So it's just not a sustainable model. It's not a sustainable model the way that they're trying to win right now. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, is signing Maton and sending Graceffo down another example of the Cardinals lying about going young this year? Should I be mad about this?
I am. I don't think it's lying. I think they believed that Nolan Arenado was going to be gone and they were going young and Nolan Arenado wouldn't go. And so they were like, cool, I guess we got to compete now.
See, I'm not mad at the Maton signing. I do think it's very Cardinals-y based on what his stuff is. Like, I would much rather would have had David Robertson brought in than Maton. But, like, I must be in the I am in the minority. Not must, I am in the minority. When we talk about a youth movement, you know what I care about when we talk about that? Rotation in the lineup. I don't care about the bullpen because bullpen arms are such a fickle thing and they break consistently. There's a reason you see teams churning through those things consistently. So if they don't go with the youth movement in the bullpen, it doesn't really bother me. And you know what? Stretching out Graceffo, you can always send him back to the bullpen. He can always be called up and be in a bullpen role at a moment's notice. And who knows, maybe he finds a way to sustain his velo as a starter at AAA this year and then becomes a guy that could work his way into the rotation. So I'm not mad at the signing. I don't think it really impacts the quote-unquote goal of a youth movement at all for me.
I find it interesting. And the reason why is because we've talked about this in the past. What is the best way to develop a starter? I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know that Major League Baseball teams know the answer to this question.
Well, I wouldn't be looking to the Cardinals on how they do it.
I think Chaim Bloom might, though. Chaim Bloom seems to be somebody that's pretty good at it. In his history, whether it's in Boston or in Tampa, his teams are good at developing starters. And so one of the things that I was curious about is how do they view this now with the new administration that's in place within the minor league system? It seems like their answer is give them time. Just wait. Give it time and let it marinate down in the minor leagues so that way when they're ready to go at the big league level, there is no more development that's taking place at the big league level. It's they hit the ground running. And the Cardinals at times in the past have really rushed these guys. And I think it's come back to hurt them, especially with players that they plucked into the bullpen and never moved back to the rotation. That's a problem that they're still experiencing with Matthew Liberatore, for example. He went to the bullpen and you're just never going to get him back into the rotation, I don't think. I think it's been determined now. So that is something that I was curious about in the offseason. I'm not mad about it because if this is the way that Chaim Bloom thinks is best to develop his starters, I'm totally cool with that. I just didn't know what the answer was going to be.
I'm not mad about the Graceffo move. That makes sense. I'm mad about this Matthew Liberatore back and forth thing, which I know we're going to get into. And frankly, and I know what you're saying, T-Bone, like they're so fickle when it comes to the bullpen arms. But I would have liked to just see Chris Roycroft and Riley O'Brien this year in the bullpen. And maybe you still will.
Probably will.
But with Phil Maton, you got a lot of arms in there that I don't know you're going to.
They still got 2 open right-handed spots that they can, and those 2 can take that. And honestly, I
it's going to be all of them. They're going to shuttle up and down.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I don't really care about it because one, they're going to shuttle back and forth, and like think about the bullpen even 3 years ago. You know who your best arms were? Jesus Cabrera, Giovanni Gallegos. Where are they? Gallegos can't get a job. And
he's in the Dodgers system, all right?
I'm sorry, he got optioned. And then Cabrera, I'm not even sure he's still in Toronto. I don't know if he is or not. But if he is, he's like a guy that you don't talk about. So I don't have a big issue with it. To your point on Chaim Bloom and pitching development, so I just looked at like Tanner Houck, right? We think Tanner Houck's a pretty good starter for Boston, 3.12 ERA last season. He didn't really get put into a full-time role. He had appeared in 18 games, 13 starts at the age of 25 back in 2021. That's the age of Gordon Graceffo right now. He becomes a bullpen arm in 2022, 32 games, 4 games started. At the age of 27 is the first time that he really hits the rotation, and he went 21 starts with a 5.01 ERA. So he wasn't even good at that age, and then he finally got it to click this past year at the age of 28.
Yeah. It takes time, man. It's like defensemen. Like sometimes you put them in there, they're in that third pair role, and it just takes a really long time where guys just are at the AHL level for a long time until finally it clicks for them, and then they become a part of your everyday lineup after that. So, all right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Last thing here, SLU, big game coming up here in just a little bit against Davidson, a team that they were able to beat earlier in the season. Alex, what are you expecting today against Davidson? It was a 1-point line last time that these two teams met.
I'm expecting it to be tight. Unfortunately, I think Davidson is victorious in this one.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm kind of with Alex. I hate to say it, but I think the season comes to an end for SLU today.
Davidson's defense kind of stinks. That's going to be where you have to win. You're going to have to win this thing in a shootout. I think SLU wins. I do think they end up pulling this thing off. The next round is where I think it gets really
always
dicey.
Worries me when a team has already played a game in the tournament and picked up a win. Always worries me. And I think they played last night, didn't they? And they beat Richmond.
Beat the hell out of them.
Yeah.
All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into some NFL quick hitters. But next, I did some research on Jordan Walker yesterday because I don't like when T-Bone has something that I don't have a retort for. I have no way. I have no ammo for me.
Someone's pissy.
So, no, I'm not.
Yeah, well said. Go to break.
Something that T-Bone has said a lot lately is you don't see guys do what Jordan Walker did, where they're really good in year one and then have this massive step back in year two. You rarely see those guys rebound again and then go on the up and up from there. I didn't have a retort for that, Alex. I didn't really have an example of somebody that's done that. So I did some research last night, and I've got a comparison for you. I'm curious how you would feel if this is what Jordan Walker becomes over the course of his career. We'll tell you who that is next year on 101 ESPN. I don't like feeling disarmed, and T-Bone has had me disarmed now for a few months, where he says, hey, Jordan Walker, he's trying to become one of one. He had a good first year, not a great one, but a really good first year, was about 15% above league average offensively, and then last year was an abomination. He was horrific. When do you see a guy go through that kind of a start and then that kind of a downward spiral that ends up rebounding and becoming a good player? And my answer is, I don't know. It's not a good answer, but I didn't have anything.
T-Bone, he went home and wept.
To have a rebuttal.
End of segment.
And so I was like, you know what? I don't like having nothing.
Kara's like, Brandon, why are you crying?
A retort anymore. So I needed to go home and do a little research. So Alex, here's what I did yesterday. I went through the last decade.
Oh, my God.
You know how I am.
Loser!
Of former top 10 prospects, according to MLB.com, that are position players, right? So I didn't include the pitchers in here, but position players that made their debut as former top 10 prospects over the last decade. Now, it's worth noting some of these guys are repeats. So, like Byron Buxton, he was a top 10 prospect in 2014, 15, and 2016. It took him a while to become an everyday player at the major league level. But I went through and I was curious, like, okay, A, were there other guys that had this kind of a nice start, rubber band effect, and then right back up again? Did those players exist? And B, when did these guys have their breakout seasons? Because for Jordan Walker, he just had his age 22 season. That is incredibly young. You rarely see guys that young perform at an all-star caliber level, unless they're like, you know, Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Bryce Harper. They're the rarity. So I want to use the 2014 class as the example here, because to me, it's the one that best represents what we're talking about here. Byron Buxton, Xander Bogaerts, Javier Baez, Francisco Lindor. Those are four guys that fit this criteria that we're talking about. Former top 10 prospects in the sport that ended up reaching the big leagues and having some success.
There are two that I am hoping you're going to say and two that I'm really hoping you're not going to say.
So Byron Buxton gets up to the big league level at age 21. He's terrible in his first year. Also not good in his second year or his third year. Pretty good in his fifth year at age 25, and then boom, takes off from there, right? Xander Bogaerts, really bad first year. Above average second year, above average third year, and then boom, rubber band effect, not good again in his fourth year. 135 OPS plus, becomes an all-star, never looks back at age 25. Javi Baez, not a great first or second year, but then third year breaks out at age 25, sensing a theme here. Francisco Lindor, really good first year, not as good second year, and then gets back to his first year production, and then takes off and never looks back by year 4 at age 24. 24-25 typically is where, in my research for these guys, if you haven't broken out by age 25, it's probably not happening. But there are guys that are at Jordan Walker's age that had not broken out yet that end up becoming not just good players, but stars at the major league level at age 23, 24, or 25. I did want to have one comparison for you guys, and I'm curious how you feel about this player being what Jordan Walker becomes. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Alex, I then looked up, after looking up all of the last 10 years of top 10 prospects as position players, who were the guys that performed similar to Jordan Walker in their age 21 season. Because Jordan Walker as a rookie was 21 years old. He's about 15% above league average offensively. So the list that I'm about to give you is players offensively that were between 5 and 20% above league average offensively, okay, at age 21 in the last decade. It's not a whole lot of them. Jackson Chourio did this last year.
Okay.
Jordan Walker did it 2 years ago. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Rougned Odor, Bryce Harper, Eric Hosmer, Starlin Castro, Freddie Freeman. Those are the players in the last decade that performed at age 21 similarly to what Jordan Walker did in a Cardinals uniform. First of all, that's a hell of a list, man. Jordan Walker, if he doesn't become a good player, would be a massive outlier. Based on those guys that did it, he would basically have to be Rougned Odor. Nobody else on that list became a bad player. Second of all, he reminds me so much of Eric Hosmer, and I can't believe that I've never made this comparison for you guys before. Eric Hosmer, as a Royal, was considered to be the savior. He was the number one guy out of that group of players that came up in the early 2010s that was supposed to deliver a title for the Royals. He was the biggest and best prospect of them, though. And he got up to the big league level and was like, okay, he's pretty good. But he had one problem. You know what that problem was, Alex?
What was it, Brandon?
He hit the ball on the ground too damn much.
Oh, but did he hit it hard?
Yes. He hit
the
ball hard, but he could not get it off of the ground. And it was a huge issue for him early on in his career. And honestly, it never really stopped being an issue for him. His entire career, he was just a guy that hit the ball on the ground too much. It hurt him in free agency. It ended up being the thing that ended his career earlier than people wanted it to. He was a good player, but never became that superstar that people expected him to be. But while he was in Kansas City, Alex, Eric Hosmer ended up being a champion. He was one of the best players on a championship caliber team. He was a 280 hitter. Got on base 34% of the time and had an OPS plus 10% above league average. So again, nobody's idea of a superstar. His average season was 30 doubles, 20 homers, and 85 RBIs per year. 30, 20, 85 were the volume stats. Again, 10% above league average offensively. I asked this on Twitter, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts. How would you feel if that is what Jordan Walker becomes in his first 7 years here in St. Louis? 10% above league average, 30, 20, 85 are the averages per year. Are you happy with it? Are you taking it? Because at this point, you'll take basically anything that becomes an above-average player. Or do you consider that to be a failure relative to what we were expecting him to be? How would you feel about that?
So I feel like those are two different questions, because how I would feel, like in the now, I'd be fine with it. Like I'd hit this button because I'm very worried of what the other side looks like for Jordan Walker. So like... But you also asked the question, how did you feel about that relative to expectations? To me, that is a failure relative to expectations, because it was a good 7 years, but like 4 of those 7 were really good. And then after that, it was good, and then it was, not so much. And man, if you're telling me I'm only going to get 4 really good years out of a guy who was supposed to be a cornerstone of this franchise moving forward, to me, relative to expectations, that doesn't meet them. But from what I've seen over these last couple of years and how I know prospects go in sports, sometimes they don't live up to the expectations. Man, I would hit that button, because if you could tell me for the next 7, 8, 9 years, I could just get a dude who every year I know I'm going to get close to 30 doubles and 25 home runs and close to 100 RBIs, sign me up for that, because I don't want to know what the other side of that coin looks like.
I don't think it would be a failure, but I do think it would be disappointing, because he's supposed to be the guy that was supposed to be, to your point, the savior, the guy that was supposed to be the internal developed superstar. And I don't know if Hosmer was a superstar. I think he was a star.
Definitely was not
but he was always a guy that the Royals, like, he hit in the middle of their order, if I'm not mistaken. But he was always a guy that hit in the middle of the order, and he went, we kind of want more from that
I don't even know if he was ever the superstar on the team. I think it was always Salvador Perez for that team, right?
Hosmer was the number one guy.
Was he?
Because I always thought Perez was.
He transitioned.
Yeah.
Salvi, during those playoff runs,
like
eventually became the guy, and then he stayed, and so he became the face of the franchise. But Eric Hosmer was the dude. It was Eric Hosmer and Alex Gordon, who was the previous iteration of the next big guy in town. But he didn't live up. Honestly, Alex Gordon has a lot of similarities to Lars Nootbaar. A lot of similarities. Really good defensively, just all-around good player. Never going to be a superstar. Bigger on-base percentage than that. Man, that is the comparison.
The Royals. And I wonder why.
Yeah.
But the guy was supposed to be Eric Hosmer. He was the star, and he became a good player.
And what I was going to bring up, too, is like he became a good player. But when you look back on those Royals teams, their offense was kind of underwhelming, right? They were more of a pitch-first team that really relied on a great back-end bullpen. Wasn't it 2015? I think one of the World Series, they fired their hitting coach in the middle of the season.
It's 14, I think.
14.
So 2014, they weren't very good offensively. 2015, they were a pretty good offense. Their bullpen was amazing. Like their identity, that was really where bullpenning. 2011 Cardinals were kind of the beginning of this, and then the 2015 Royals took it to another degree, like just studs 7, 8, 9, never had to worry about it, and then everybody now builds their team that way. That's the way you have to build from now on.
Yeah, and that's why I just say that, and I go, I think Walker, like it would be okay, because it means you get some positive returns on Walker if he becomes Eric Hosmer. But to me, it is underwhelming based on what the expectations were. And I would say that it's not a failure, because a failure would be like he is what he was last year, and you never end up getting him back to league average. But to me, it would not be a success. I don't think the Cardinals would walk around and Mo in his retirement on the beach would be going, yeah, look at what I did with Jordan Walker.
Little Mo.
But would you be happy about
No, I think it'd be disappointing because what happens is with the Cardinals, and I'm going to get pre-mad for a minute, so let me cook.
Go ahead.
For the Cardinals, if they can't develop Walker into the superstar, I don't know where they're getting him, right? And that's the problem, is if they were...
Can you win without one?
No.
I guess that's really the question we're having.
I don't think you can.
When was the last team that won without one?
Doesn't really.
I think we had this question, and we couldn't come up with it. Now, I think there's teams that have won one with without a position player superstar, but they have a superstar on the pitching side of
I think
things.
the closest thing would have been the Royals.
Probably.
If the Diamondbacks had done it 2 years ago when they beat the
Corbin Carroll,
Philly
though.
Rangers, I don't know if he's a superstar
He felt
yet.
like a
but
superstar.
He felt like he was about to
So
be
I
a
guess that's
superstar.
fair.
I mean, what I was about to say is, I think if you were to ask the same question prior to the Jordan Walker rookie year, everyone would say that's a failure. Because the expectations were, no, man, this dude's going to be a superstar. The reason it's not a failure now is because people saw what last year was, and they're like, just give me something.
Yeah,
just give me something out of this. But I do agree with T-Bone. If you don't, I can't trust you with J.J. Weatherholt. I can't trust you with this next draft pick that you're going to have, and I don't know if you're going to be drafted in the top 10 again.
Man, so many of these position players for the Cardinals, like if you just told me they will be signing a star next year or trading for a star next year, like in some way, shape, or form, they are acquiring a superstar. Everything else, I feel like, man, I feel kind of good about where they're at. It starts to make a lot more sense for the Cardinals. Like, Lars Nootbaar as your fifth best hitter is a pretty damn good fifth best hitter. Or Jordan Walker in this scenario, being like a 5 or a 6 hole hitter and being your equivalent to Eric Hosmer, that's not a bad place to be. Wilson Contreras is your second or third best guy. J.J. Weatherholt being your second or third best guy if he becomes the player that they think he can be. Stuff starts to fit into place pretty easily.
It all just comes down to going out there and saying we can't develop the star, so let's just get the star because we've got a lot of really good pieces around it.
Let me give you an example of this because I got really excited yesterday.
Yeah, I can tell.
As you start thinking about like what this lineup could look like if they went out and acquired the superstar, just for bleeps and giggles, you know.
You were playing MLB The Show, weren't you?
Nootbaar leading off, Contreras batting second, J.J. Weatherholt's batting third. Now, Weatherholt has to be a really good player for that to work, but they believe he can be. They think he can be like an all-around, really solid hitter. Put in star X here.
Kyle Tucker.
Batting cleanup. Herrera batting fifth, Donovan 6, Walker 7, Wynn 8, Scott 9. Yeah. That is a contending lineup.
That's
if
a
you
lineup.
can figure out the pitching side of things.
That's a lineup
and
that I could get excited for.
it should be pretty good defensively if Herrera gets his stuff together behind the plate. But it all requires you to plop in that superstar in the middle of their order, and nobody in our listening audience believes they're going to do that right now. Not a single one of you.
And this goes back to the Open, where I said,
and I don't blame you, to be clear. I'm not saying you should believe that. Nobody believes it.
This is the Open, though, of why it's like, is there anything that could get you excited? No, not because it's because of who's in charge. If I know that this team is willing to engage, and it doesn't even have to be to sign the free agent, go trade for the guy. If I know that this team is willing to engage and say, we know exactly where our biggest hole is and we're going to go fill it, then I'm all on. Like, I'll put the conductor hat on, and it works for me. But I just don't trust it, and it's where the pre-mad comes from. You got to be willing to do stuff that people don't believe you will for me to actually believe this team can do something.
Yeah. It's a tough place to be in as a fan because there's some reasons for optimism, but all of it feels like it's just a little short because you don't have the guy in the middle of your order. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, NFL Quick Hitters is coming up next. A little bit of news pass along. This comes from college basketball. Did you guys see this? Cooper Flagg has left the court prior to halftime.
Yeah, it was brutal.
He's been ruled out for the rest of the game. He has an ankle injury. He rolled his ankle. They're in the ACC tournament against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Who's your favorite former Yellow Jacket?
Do I have? I'd have to Google it, to be honest with you.
Jared Jack?
Who?
Chris Bosh? You don't know Jared Jack?
No, I know Chris Bosh. I didn't realize Bosh
I didn't know Bosh was there. Was he somewhere else?
I almost said
Chris Bosh is a Yellow Jacket, right?
I have no idea. I almost
don't
said
think
Chris
so.
Paul, but he was Wake Forest.
I feel like Chris
If I
Bosh
remember
was a Georgia Tech guy. Am I wrong on that?
I only liked Georgia Tech when they ran the triple option back in college football. That was football.
Chris Bosh, if my computer will work.
Yeah, it is Chris Bosh.
He went to Georgia Tech,
Yeah.
right? Okay, see, there we go.
Oh, John
Boom.
Sally's my favorite.
Who?
He's an actor now. He was in Bad Boys too.
There you go. So anyways, Georgia Tech,
do you
last
guys
I
keep making
checked,
up names?
up on...
Still can't believe Chris Bosh was Georgia Tech.
yeah, man, he was there for, I think, 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. He was a good player for them.
I think you're lying.
Jared Jackville was when they were really in their heyday. Back when Georgia Tech and Wake Forest was really good with Chris Paul.
Chris Bosh.
Marquette with
Georgia Tech?
Dwayne Wade. Some good years early on there. All right. Going back through my childhood. Duke now up 48-40 against Georgia Tech, but Cooper Flagg out. Big news in the college basketball scene. All right. Let's get into some NFL quick hitters. A lot of quarterback news over the last 24 hours. What's going on with the Vikings? Because it sure sounds like they are interested in Aaron Rodgers. Now, over on The Athletic, they said, don't worry, the Vikings still like J.J. McCarthy. He's the plan long term, but, quote, the Vikings want a veteran quarterback to pair with J.J. McCarthy, and Rodgers is the best veteran available, end quote. Alex, what do you make of this?
They don't trust J.J. McCarthy, and they have to find a quarterback.
Okay.
You want to talk about a real disaster? Aaron Rodgers with your younger quarterback? No way, man. This just screams. I mean, especially coming off of what we talked about a couple of days ago with Kevin O'Connell saying, like, I'm going to really be looking at this quarterback situation. To me, this screams we don't trust J.J. McCarthy to be able to do what Sam Darnold did last year. So let's go get another one-year fix until next year when we can see if J.J. McCarthy's ready.
I'm having a tough time reading into this is Kevin O'Connell doesn't like McCarthy, or this is, hey, this guy hasn't played football in 365 days. Let's at least have a backup option.
But is Aaron Rodgers a good backup option? That's not a backup.
I think it is. No, but that's what I'm saying. Is this is a backup option of, hey, McCarthy probably actually needs the full year of going through the reps and being the backup while we bring in a veteran that comes in and starts. And if you're in that process, yeah, it probably is Rodgers you bring in. It's either him or Russell Wilson.
Didn't Rodgers just say he wanted to play 2 more years, though?
I mean, you're going to give him a 1-year deal. He's not getting 2.
Unless he's saying,
So
I
you're
want
doing
2.
effectively
I can't say
what
the
the
word that I would
Falcons
tell
did that
him.
we crushed the Falcons for. You're foregoing the first 2 years of this rookie contract with J.J. McCarthy. That's what you're doing. Because the Falcons, we crushed them. We're like,
Well, they didn't have a choice on the first one, though.
They did.
He was hurt.
Sure, but
That's what I'm
saying
with McCarthy.
But now in year 2, you do have a choice. Now it's up to you. Now you decide if you want to go with McCarthy or not, and they're seemingly opting for Aaron Rodgers, which is a bad option. Like we all watched Rodgers play last year, right? I understand you can go over to Pro Football Reference, and if you eliminate all context, and I mean all context, and you seemingly just look at his numbers, you can make a case. Rodgers didn't have terrible numbers last year. He threw for like 4,000 yards. He didn't have a bunch of interceptions. Like in that scenario, sure, you can go ahead and believe in it. We watched him play football, and it was terrible for the entire season, and it was miserable to watch. I don't understand this at all. It makes zero sense to me for the Vikings, unless he's still hurt. Like, the only scenario where it makes sense to me is they don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to be healthy this year. Not that he needs a year, that he can't get onto the football field because his leg is broken. It's just busted, and he's not going to be the guy that they expected him to be health-wise.
But if that's the case, say it, because this whole Aaron Rodgers mysterious thing makes zero sense. Like, I would be going a different quarterback, one that could start the first 5 or 6 games for me, and then when I feel McCarthy's ready, he steps in. You can't do that with Rodgers. You can act like you can and bring him in and say, hey, we told you we were going to sit you halfway through the year. There's no way.
Yeah, if you're going to do this, go get like
Jameis Winston.
Joe Flacco. Yep.
Yes. One of those guys that is a career backup
Russell
that
Wilson
knows what the role is going to be. Now, Russ is seemingly not a great dude for that.
He does high
Like
knees on the
Gardner
team
Minshew.
plane.
Gardner Minshew can go out there and give you 5 capable games. It ain't going to be great, but if you need him to start a few games, he could do that for you. He's capable. That's the route that I go. Not Aaron Rodgers. This is weird. All right, next thing up here. Russell Wilson is expected to visit the Browns this week, according to Ian Rappaport. He's 36 years old, finished the season last year as the Steelers starter, and now he's potentially going to go to Cleveland. How would you guys feel about this signing?
I mean, it's better than what you've had, that's for sure. I don't
think
know.
it makes a lot. This one, I think, makes a ton of sense. Cheap.
Poor Myles
veteran.
Garrett, man. I want to be traded. We're not trading you. Cool, I'll take more money. You got Russell Wilson as your team quarterback now.
What's the alternative?
Rodgers.
Flacco.
Exactly.
Flacco. Yeah, this one makes some sense. Offensively, like they don't. Who's the guy he's throwing the ball deep to? Because it's kind of Russ's mo.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have George Pickens now.
Yeah, I mean, they're just in a bad place offensively. They don't have a whole lot.
That quarterback room, man. Let me tell you.
Deshaun won't be there. He's recovering.
He'll be there occasionally.
Jerry
I
Jeudy.
doubt it. He's not really a deep threat, is he? Not really.
He is now.
I mean, they don't really have one.
Yeah, and he played with them. I forgot about that. He
Oh,
already
yeah.
played with them.
I don't think it was
That did
very
not go
pretty.
well.
No, Judy's probably going, are you kidding me?
I got away from this.
I'd always go, Russ, I'm going to make an out route. I'm going to be open. No, go long.
I would just bring back Jameis if I'm
I was going to say, this is another bad decision. Just go get Jameis.
And last one here. Mac Jones signed a 2-year, $7 million deal with the 49ers. Remember when the 49ers were reportedly in on one of Trey Lance or Mac Jones, and they went Trey Lance, and they regretted it the moment that they did it, and now they have Mac Jones, and they have a quarterback situation where their quarterback's trying to get paid, and they don't want to pay him because they're trying to get all of the money off their books.
That was
you
a
guys
lot.
make anything of this?
Yeah, what you just said.
A lot of
Sure
issues
seems
there.
like Kyle Shanahan at least wants to have an option in place in case things go awry.
I think Kyle Shanahan knows the writing on the table. I think he's been handed 2 folders. Here's folder 1 where we have Brock Purdy for 1 more year. Here's folder 2 where we trade Brock Purdy and get you a different quarterback.
Where do you think Kyle Shanahan is coaching in 2027? 2 years from now. Because I don't think it's San Francisco.
Dallas?
I think he's the next coach of the Kansas City Chiefs.
No wonder why he brought it up. Shocker. I
That's
should have
not
seen
happening.
that one coming.
Not happening.
Or if they don't end up taking the next step, I could see him being in Houston. He was the offensive coordinator there a few years ago. It's like 10 years ago now, I guess. But he has a history with that organization.
He'll go to the Jets.
They've got a quarterback in place that I could see working in that offense, that style of offense. They had one of his disciples as their offensive coordinator last year. They continue to go down that path. I could see something like that as well.
See, it's funny because the answer that I was thinking, Texans is a good one because I didn't even put them in my list. And I don't think they would do this, and you're going to hate when I bring it up. But,
boy.
I mean, if you're throwing the Chiefs out there, what the hell? I'll throw this team out there.
The Rams.
Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
That's who I thought. If McDermott doesn't get over the hump at some point, if you're Buffalo, and he becomes available, I mean, that will be a serious conversation. When we've had this conversation in the past, and they're like, oh, do you get rid of McDermott? I'm going, who the hell am I hiring? Right? The grass isn't always greener on the other side. I can convince myself there's grass on the other side if Shanahan becomes available.
Got more quarterback news, buddy. It's like 2 hours ago, but Mason Rudolph's going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I saw that.
There you go. They got their quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huzzah.
another 500 season, boys.
As Kerry would do. Wait, how does he do it? I don't remember. Something with the Steelers.
By the way, Kenny Pickett is having his introductory press conference. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he was traded to the Browns.
They got their quarterback.
He said just a minute ago, quote, I see myself as the starter.
Oh, good for you.
Well, in his
Hold on.
defense, there's no other quarterback there.
I have a question.
Him and his baby hands.
Who the hell's idea was it to have Pickett give a press conference? Really?
The
That
Cleveland
guy?
has to get you something
Sounds
excited
like when
for.
the Pirates were like, we're going to have a press conference because we signed Rich Hill. Really?
Get you excited, doesn't it?
No. What? Why?
Why not?
The Cardinals should have held one for Nick Anderson.
Well, he's not
No,
actually.
Maton. We should have.
Yeah, Maton will be great. I'm sure he'll probably be available. In all seriousness, he'll be available to the media here within the next 48 hours.
Being available to the media is different than a press conference.
Yeah.
You got to have a table up.
In the offseason, I think a lot of these reporters are like scattered across the country. It looks like this is on Zoom, so I don't know that it's like a legit gather everybody.
I'm just saying the
We've got
Steelers-
Kenny Pickett.
I want to talk with the Cleveland Browns media member. What was your reaction when you got the text? Hey, press availability. Oh, maybe the GM's speaking or the head coach.
take the kids to the park.
Kenny Pickett's talking.
Coming up next,
Who? What?
Number 12 on our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals
you were tuning
for
in.
2025 here on 101 ESPN.
Who?
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Then puck drop at 6 o'clock with the voice of Blues, Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. Cardinals in spring training action right now as they're taking on the Houston Astros. They are tied at 0 in the top of the third. The Cardinals, of course, made a roster move today as they signed free agent right-handed reliever Phil Maton to a one-year, $2 million deal, and they optioned Gordon Graceffo to the minor leagues. This Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
The 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season. Number 12.
Ground ball to second. He's going to be through 7 in his big league debut. Listen to this crowd in St. Louis.
Michael McGreevy.
McGreevy comes in at number 12 on our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals list for the 2025 season. The only reason he's this low is because Alex hates him. He had him at number 19 on his list. T-Bone had him at number 12. I had him at number 9. He ends up at number 12 on our combined list of the most important Cardinals this year.
I'm sorry, where's Michael McGreevy now?
Right now, the big leagues.
No, he's going to be optioned, and we all know.
How could you tell me you were upset and excited for him?
Because I am upset, but I know what the Cardinals are going to do.
To me, Michael McGreevy represents what the Cardinals have been lacking, which is a legitimate back-end starter. They need homegrown back-of-the-rotation starters. It's not sexy. This is not a superstar. Nobody's going to go into the playoffs thinking to themselves, man, I'm really glad we have Michael McGreevy starting a Game 4 for us. But you know what he allows you to do, Alex? He allows you to have somebody other than Eric Fetty starting Game 2 for you. Michael McGreevy, Andre Palante, Quinn Matthews, those guys developing into legitimate 3, 4, 5 starters means that you have those 3 spots in your rotation locked down for like $6 million combined. And instead, in previous years, you had Michael, or why am I blanking on his name? The number 3 starter right now. Why am I?
Miles Michaelis?
That was
my
rough.
God.
Miles Michaelis.
He's your number 2, by the
Kyle
way.
Gibson and Lance Lynn taking up those 3 spots for a combined $50 million. That $40 million that you don't have to spend for those back-end starters, hopefully, fingers crossed for the foreseeable future, that is why Michael McGreevy was so high on my list. Why was he so low on yours?
You know what? I'm actually looking at this list and kind of wondering why. I don't remember why I had him so low, because like Quinn Matthews was higher up on mine, and I guess maybe it was the upside here. Sure. I think if I were to do this list again, he would be higher up. He'd probably be right where Matthews is, because I do think he impacts your roster more this year later on than what Quinn Matthews is going to do, because he is a guy that can be effective for you, and next year he's going to be cost controlled. My only, I guess, if I'm going to argue for myself why I had him that low, is because I don't believe the Cardinals are going to give him the opportunity until an injury pops up, which it probably will with Steven Matz. But I got to be 100% with you guys. I think if Steven Matz gets injured, Matthew Liberatore is just going to move into the rotation. Sweet. So unfortunately, I think when you look at the now, Michael McGreevy is not very important, because he's probably going to be in AAA for a majority of this season. But for the future, if I were to redo this list, which I probably should, he would be probably right where Quinn Matthews and Sonny Gray is.
And you had Quinn Matthews at number 12 on your list. Yeah. So you had him right around where he ultimately ended up being for our
But
list.
McGreevy and Palante, to me, are kind of the same pitcher, and it's no coincidence I had Palante 1 slot ahead of Michael McGreevy.
Yeah, I had him fringe top 10 because I think most of his value will be more about what it means for next year than this year. He will help them win. And again, I've said this before, my list was combined of what's best for the Cardinals in the long term beyond 2025, with also a nice little sprinkle of how do they win in 2025. He helps for 2025 because he will start here at the big leagues at some point, because injuries will happen, or at some point they'll look at Matz and go, okay, what are we doing? Put him in the bullpen. We'll call McGreevy up. He's stretched out. He will be our 6th starter. And there's value to having that guy as a number 6, so you don't have to do what you were mentioning, what they did with Liberatore last year, which is use him as a swing man. And the other thing for me is what you were talking about with like Michaelis, where they're paying him $18 million to be a number 3. Where McGreevy's real value for the St. Louis Cardinals will come is if he can pitch, be an effective number 4 starter that is cost control. So instead of paying Fetty what his next contract will be, which is about $15 to $20 million, you don't have to go out to the market for that. You can have someone that's cost control, and then you can reallocate those resources, whether that is to a guy for the top 2 in the rotation or to go help you impact your lineup in free agency.
And Palante and Quinn Matthews help you avoid the Steven Matz, Miles Michaelis, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, like all of these dudes that have come and gone for the Cardinals rotation that you didn't enjoy watching, let's be honest, for the most part with most of these pitchers, that you were like, well, I guess we have to do it. Instead of having to go to the market to sign those players, you now can just avoid it entirely, which is the ideal scenario. And you can go out there and just have these cost-controlled, drafted and developed starters that are at the back end of your rotation. That's how it's supposed to be. All right, can we talk a little bit about the game today?
Wow, Betty, what happened?
They're back. Cardinals are back.
Shut up, man.
Lars Nootbaar just hit a triple to bring in a runner from second base. Beautiful. Love to see it. My guy, Ivan Herrera, one of the breakout candidates for all of Major League Baseball this year, also hit a triple in the previous inning. 2 triples in 2 innings?
No, he hit a single. That was an error.
No, he hit an out.
He hit an out. That was an error.
It was a fly ball to the left.
5'5" Jose Altuve did a little jump hop to try and catch it, and he missed the ball completely. Even MLB Network tweeted out the video of it and said Jose Altuve is still working out the kinks in left field.
Well, I think
that's not a triple.
Wait, did they really?
Yes, they did. He said he's still working out the kinks.
I would frame it a little differently. I would frame it as Lars Nootbaar is back and Ivan Herrera breakout season SZN incoming. That's what my headline for that would have been.
Lars Nootbaar is back with his 7th hit so far this spring training.
It's fine. Ivan Herrera has been hitting the crap out of the baseball. Ivan Herrera is going to have a hell of a season.
Yeah, today he hit the crap out of it right into the glove of what should have been the left fielder for the Houston Astros.
Didn't hit the glove, can't be an error.
Amen.
Shut up, man. Altuve, if you go look at, like, in football where they show you, like, you know, the trajectory of where he ran. Yeah. If you go look at his route, he ran in a circle underneath the ball for a good 2 seconds before it dropped.
They don't have StatCast at Houston's spring training site, but I bet you that had an expected batting average of like .999.
No. I bet you it had an expected batting average of 0.09.
Yeah, that one I would believe. It probably had a 99% chance of being caught.
Even Herrera was jogging to first base, and then he saw Altuve scatter, and he started running faster.
BK, it's a one hit in spring training. You shut your mouth.
Let's also talk about what happened after Herrera got to third base with 1 out.
We don't have to.
Strikeout, ground out.
We're back.
We are still here.
Can we talk about how they got mowed down by Paul Bleepin Blackburn yesterday, by the way?
We'll do that coming up at the 1 o'clock hour. Coming up next, time for the junk drawer here in BK and Ferrario.
Everyone deserves a fast and reliable connection, one that helps better their everyday through the things they value most: friends and family, education and career. A connection that opens pathways to opportunity and builds roads to a better future. At Spectrum, we're committed to delivering just that every single day. Because with the right connection, anything is possible. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I'm here with longtime friend of the show and sponsor, James Carlton. James, what I love about your office, when you walk in, everyone's friendly. You can just kind of get this vibe in there. They're truly there to help.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, to quote a book, Unreasonable Hospitality, it's not what you say necessarily, it's not what you do, but it's how you make people feel. We want our customers to feel like more than just a number, which is why we do everything possible to make things easy and personalized.
All right, what's the best way for folks to get in touch to see how much they can save?
Call or text 314-961-4800 or go online at carltoninsurance.net.
Rapid Radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies with national LTE coverage. Go to rapidradios.com and you'll get up to 60% off free UPS shipping. Add code RADIO for an additional 5% off.
Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Guys, I'm going to read you a headline because this is a wild ride. You ready?
Hit me with it.
Death-defying neuroscientist turned OnlyFans model confronts life with memory loss after a brutal bike accident caused by a pigeon.
What?
Every word was crazier than the first, and you have no idea where this thing is going. Let me read this for you one more time.
Scientist?
A death-defying neuroscientist who turned OnlyFans model is now confronting life with memory loss after she had a brutal bike accident that was caused by a pigeon. All right, yeah, I'll go ahead and click on that one.
My first question is, why is she a death-defying neurosurgeon?
Neuroscientist. Well, death-defying because she had this terrible accident that almost killed her. That made it seem like she was caused by a pigeon.
That made it seem like she was a circus act of like a high-flying neuroscientist.
Sure.
Yeah, the near-death experience with a pigeon, I totally understand that.
Do you have experiences with
pigeons? No, but birds scare the hell out of me, and if I'm on a bike and one flies by my face, I'm going to probably wreck that bike and hit my head hard on the ground. What I'm wondering, was she not wearing a helmet? And if you're a neuroscientist not wearing a helmet...
She was actually wearing a helmet.
Man, that had to be a brutal hit to the ground. How did you have a near-death experience with a helmet on?
Well, that's the car.
Oh, she ran into a car. Yeah, that makes sense. I thought she fell off the bike. But I get it with the pigeon. I don't do birds.
Yeah, really? Her motorcycle into the front end of a car.
Oh, so it was a motorcycle, it wasn't a bike?
Yeah. Well, it was a bike, motorcycle.
This all makes sense now.
Yeah, she can't remember most of what happened the month prior to this accident.
Obviously.
Yep. My dad, when I was growing up, I was very, very young at this time. I don't remember it at all, obviously.
Did you fall off a bike with a pigeon?
So my dad went to buy a motorcycle. He did not tell my mother that he was buying a motorcycle.
It's never a good start.
Yeah. So he's driving it home, and on his way home in the intersection gets hit. His pants were like
he lost his pants?
Yeah, his pants came off. They were completely ripped off of his body. He's basically naked in the middle of the intersection, has to go to the hospital. My mom gets the call, hey, we've got your husband. He's in the hospital. He was in a motorcycle accident. And as you can probably imagine, she's horrified and confused because why was he in a motorcycle accident? He doesn't have a motorcycle. He did. He no longer has a motorcycle because as he's driving home, gone. So I will never get a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. My dad has one, and he rides it occasionally. But even when he rides it, it scares the hell out of us because people just are awful drivers.
Crazy, man.
But I will also say there are some motorcycle drivers that, like, you probably shouldn't be driving a motorcycle. The ones that decide to weave in and out of cars on the highway because they feel like they can.
You should never have a motorcycle.
Oh, no, I would never do that. If I had a motorcycle, I feel like it would be side roads because I wouldn't trust it on the highway. But I hate the people that it's like, oh, watch out for motorcycles. The ones that just go just in and out of cars because they don't want to sit in traffic. It's like, what the hell is happening right now?
Dude, driving in today, so I live out in the St. Charles County. So I come over the bridge on 70 and then take 270 down, right? I'm going over the bridge on 70, and there's a guy that's behind me. Now, he was not in a motorcycle, but he was just in like a black SUV. He must have been going 110 miles an hour. And he is flying down. He starts out behind me, and then obviously, because I'm not going 110 miles an hour, he flies by me. I think it was Stalter, actually.
That sounds right.
And then about 30 seconds later, I see this cop go by me with its lights on, and then the cop turns its lights on because he's like, I'm not going to be able to catch him. I think he outran the cop.
That away.
Like,
that away.
Annoying, but I kind of respect it in a weird roundabout way.
But I mean, I get it with birds,
It's crazy
man.
driving on 70 and 270 nowadays, man. You got to watch yourself out there.
Going back to it, though, again, if you think you can handle a bird and it flies in front of your face and you weren't expecting it, you're lying to somebody. Because anytime a bird just decides to swoop down and catch you off guard, game over.
We're finally getting, so our carport, we're a house that was built in the 60s, so we don't have a garage. We have the old carport out in St. Charles. We're finally getting some netting put up, Alex, to take care of our bird problem. They don't get in the house anymore, but they still are in the carport, so I have to power wash outside once every 2 weeks to get the bird poop out of there.
Yeah.
So we're getting that taken care of, I think, in the next
Our
week.
girls are obsessed with birds now, and they love the bird houses because they're looking at them in the morning. And so we've got one above our back patio, when you walk outside, and it's a tiny birdhouse, real tiny hole. And so these little freaking, I don't even know what kind of birds they are, but they're they get in there and I don't know they're in there, and I'll wake up in the morning and I'll go out and I'll walk around, and these, they decide to come out, and I think they have meetings at night about power bombing me. Because I'll come out and it's just one after the other after the other. I want to get rid of that birdhouse so bad.
I'm going to pay them off to the side to make sure that they hit you next time.
Somebody's doing it.
Next, what is your level of concern over this Cardinals offense, given how bad they've been in spring training? We'll talk about that here on BK and Ferrario.
You might have heard Doug Voss and Safe Money Radio. His shows have been on several radio stations for many years. Now he can be heard every Sunday from 10 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. He is super excited to get to the ESPN audience as he is a huge St. Louis sports fan. Doug is an expert at minimizing the impact of market volatility on his clients' assets. So catch Safe Money Radio every Sunday at 10 a.m. on 101 ESPN. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through GH Hill Securities, LLLP, member FINRA and SIPC.
This is attorney Todd Nissenholtz of Kaufman Tonsley. When you're the victim of a serious car accident, not choosing the best lawyer will cost you. It costs you time, it costs you money, settling too quickly with the insurance company. But here's the good news. Since you don't pay unless we win, you can afford the very best. And that's Kaufman Townsley. Call 314-500-5000 for a no-charge conversation. It costs you nothing to call, but may cost you everything if you don't. Call 314-500-5000.
Guys, I thought spring training stats didn't matter. For me, it's the same as if they were teeing off or tearing the cover off the ball. It really doesn't matter to me. Have we seen the complete lineup for more than one game just yet? The answer to that is no. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. What is our level of concern on the Cardinals offense? That's a question we want to talk about here today because the Cardinals offense has been horrible thus far in spring training. I don't really care about spring training stats. We are getting to the portion of the spring, though, where you'd like to see some more signs of offense. And today, for what it's worth, you have seen Lars Nootbaar hit a triple. You have seen Ivan Herrera hit a triple. But otherwise, there just hasn't been a whole lot going on with the offense. They had 2 hits yesterday against the Mets. The entire game, 2 hits. They are now last in Major League Baseball in spring training average at 203. They're 28th in on-base percentage at 315. They are taking their walks, but, it's spring training. There's a lot of young arms that don't know how to throw into the strike zone. The Cardinals are also last right now among all Major League Baseball teams, Alex, for spring in slugging percentage at just 350. So they're not getting on. They're not hitting for average. They're not hitting for any kind of slugging percentage. Now, sometimes you can see these stats and they can be a little misleading because it's your young guys that aren't going to be a part of the Major League roster that are struggling, and it's bringing down the offense for everybody else. Not the case for the Cardinals. In spring, Gorman is 7 for 35. Now, he has been trending up. That is worth noting. But he has a 565 OPS. Mason Wynn, going into today, was 3 for 32. He's 0 for 2 today, right?
Yes.
So 3 for 34 with an OPS below 300. Nolan Arenado, 4 for 30, OPS below 500. Ciani, 1 for 28 prior to today with an OPS below 200. Donovan, 3 for 23. Walker, 2 for 14. Small sample size there. Then he got hurt. He hasn't been in a game since. But that's Gorman, Wynn, Arenado, Ciani, Donovan, and Walker. 5 of those 6 players are probably going to be in the opening day lineup. That's not what you want. So, Alex, for you, for the audience at 314-399-9646, what is your level of concern right now with this offense?
Put it at like a 6 or a 7. Because, yes, you are right. Seeing a lot of these younger players that are playing, and now is when you start to see the regulars. You know me, I'm Mr. RISP, runners in scoring position. And if you go through the regulars, they have not been very good with runners in scoring position. I think the best one has been Wilson Contreras, who's hitting 400 with runners in scoring position. But Ivan Herrera hitting less than 200. Nolan Arenado around 225. Nolan Gorman doesn't have a hit in 6 opportunities. Lars Nootbaar actually is doing pretty well with it, 667. But yeah, I mean, it's concerning because although it is only spring training and you can't really read into this because once the season starts, that's where you really start to get a good feel. But this is the preparation towards it. Like, if you struggle from start to finish of spring training and then just to expect to get into the regular season and say, cool, I'll be ready to go, I'm not on board with that. I think what you're seeing is going to be a result of what's going to take place early on in the season for the Cardinals. They're going to struggle to hit. They're going to struggle with guys and runners in scoring position, and they're going to be a bad offense in the first couple of months of the season before things start to heat up.
Yeah, I am probably a little higher than a 7. I'm at like an 8 or a 9 at this point with the offense because this is the time where spring really does matter. And though I was a little alarmed by the offense early on in spring because a lot of the guys that we are talking about, like Gorman, was getting a ton of at-bats early in spring. And to your point, he is starting to show some signs of life, but he really went through it early on. I mean, this is most of the regulars that are in the lineup for them, and that's what makes this alarming is most of their guys, like I was just looking at their top 10 guys that are getting at-bats right now, the only guy that's not going to make the team is probably Sajaci and Ciani, one of Ciani or Scott.
Yep.
And the offense has not been playing well. And Arenado's doesn't look like he's having his bounce back, which, again, I kind of expected that. But he is going to be the guy that's going to be in the middle of their order. I am very alarmed by what we are seeing from this offense because it's one thing to start off slow in the first 2 weeks, but then at some point it's got to start to really turn around. And we are 2 weeks from today is opening day. They have got to start showing some life with this offense, or it is going to be a major concern once we hit the regular season.
I think some of what's happening right now is just confirmation bias, right? People were already concerned about the offense. You came out of last season, Walker hadn't performed, Gorman was terrible. Like, you looked up and down the lineup and you say to yourself, I don't feel great about any of these guys. Maybe they can rebound, but I don't feel good about it. Arenado had a really down year. So you're looking at Gorman, Arenado, Siani's not a good offensive player. He's getting there for his defense. And then Walker. That's 4 of the 6 players that I mentioned earlier that are struggling in spring. They also had their struggles a year ago. So this is just, it's confirming what you already feared. With Mason Wynn and Brendan Donovan, that is where I do find it to be a little interesting, is how do you evaluate it when it's a guy that you felt pretty good about going into this spring that is now struggling? Because Donovan, I think we all know pretty much where he's going to end up. He's going to have a 350-ish on base percentage. He's going to hit for a little bit of pop. He's going to be a good player for you. Wynn is, I think, the fear. Wynn is the one where you look at it and you say to yourself, I've seen this before, where a Cardinals player goes out there and has a very good rookie year, whether it's Dylan Carlson or Jordan Walker, and then in year 2, there is that regression from them offensively, and it doesn't look the same. And that, to me, is really where the concern comes in for some of what we've seen thus far. Gorman, you wanted to see a little bit of growth. Walker, he's hurt. Arenado, I didn't know what to expect, but we'll see there. Gorman struggles, and Mason Wynn not looking like himself thus far. Those are the 2 that do give me a little bit of pause thus far. I was hoping to see more out of those 2 guys. Gorman's been heating up. Hopefully that continues. I want to see more out of Mason Wynn. This is starting to get, but we did see this last year as well, where there was like a month stretch where Wynn didn't look the same. Got off to a really hot start, then went through some struggles, and then rebounded and acquitted himself well the rest of the year. So hopefully that's what this is. He's making some adjustments. He's tweaking his swing a little bit. He said he got a little too homer happy early in the spring, and he was trying to swing for the fences too often. Hopefully he can make those adjustments that are necessary prior to the start of the season. To answer my own question, scale of 1 to 10, where am I at in terms of my concern level? I'm at like a 5 right now, which, given where I've been at all spring, pretty high. But I'm still not overly pessimistic just because it's still spring. We've got 10 more days prior to even the start of the regular season. And even then, you can get off to a little bit of a sluggish start and still rebound from it. But for this team, you kind of need to get off to a hot start. Otherwise, you put yourself so far behind the 8 ball that the front office all year long is thinking to themselves, all right, when are we going to start to sell? When are we going to start to sell? When are we going to start to sell? And more importantly, the fan base says, I'm checked out. The only way that this team can get this fan base bought in is if they get off to a hot start. Yep. It's the only way it happens. Because last year, they ended up kind of getting in it by the end. They were interesting, at least by the end of the season. It didn't matter. This fan base had already written them off based on what happened in April and May.
This team can't play catch-up. And if we're talking about catch-up baseball, I think we're going to be sadly disappointed this year. So I just don't like the vibe of a team, and I know it's only spring training and you do make adjustments and you're working on certain things. I just don't like the vibe, especially for a lot of younger players that are working through things in spring training, and then you get to the major league season and you're expecting it to all of a sudden click. And maybe it does, but you're right, BK. For me, you can't afford to start the first month of the season out of the gate slow, because if you do, completely checked out on this team.
And maybe it's confirmation bias. I mean, you mentioned that as kind of a thing. And I remember, and look, different player, and he was at a different part of his career. But I remember when Carpenter went through that one spring where it was like 1 for 40 or something like that, like an unbelievable mark. And then it went into the regular season. It's one thing to not be hitting the ball well, like 210, 220 batting average in spring training. It's another one we're like well below the Mendoza line. And that's where you're at with Mason Wynn. Surprisingly, that's where you're at with Brendan Donovan. I agree. That's the one that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. That's where you're at with some of these other guys when you're looking at their lineup so far, like Arenado at 133, Gorman, who is starting to creep up there a little bit. It's one thing to say, hey, they had their struggles through spring. They hit like 220. You expect to hit like 260. That typically is, okay, yeah, maybe just figuring out timing, maybe working on something. But when we're talking about guys that are like 125, Mason Wynn starting 3 for 34, there's something there, I think. And that is where I am really going to be keeping an eye on, because typically when you see that bad of a start in spring training, it typically doesn't just, hey, boom, hey, we've hit the regular season and things have really turned on their head, and now Wynn's back to being the 270 slap hitter that he is.
Yeah, I would say I want to see what the numbers look like over the next 10 days. I care about those more than anything that we've seen up to this point. If they continue to be this bad, I'll be a little alarmed going into the regular season. if things start trending in the right direction, if Gorman hits 3 homers in the next 10 days and Mason Wynn hits 250 over the next 10 days, I'm not going to be overly concerned because that feels like it's more of where they're trending as opposed to what they were for the first month of spring training when these games, frankly, just didn't matter all that much. So I'm at a 5. You said you're at an 8, Alex?
No, 6, 7.
7?
I'm at an 8.
8? Okay.
I'm alarmed.
We're all kind of in different areas, but there is...
Gorman struck out on cue, by the way.
Oh, well, there's that home run that BK was talking about.
0 for 2 today with 2 strikeouts, I think.
It's not what you want.
We're back.
We are back.
Gorman's concerning.
We are back.
He's the one that I find interesting, too, because how long do you stick with it? You go with it the whole season, right? You just live with it?
Yeah, you do not back away from it.
I don't know if he gets the full season. Yeah. I think he gets 2 months, and then they may have to pivot because they got a guy in Burley that can get his at-bats, right? I mean, he's on the bench.
Donovan at second, Burleson at DH.
In the second half, I mean, I don't think he'll be ready yet, but Weatherholt could be knocking on the door, man. Gorman's got 2 months. Gorman's got 2 months to figure out his ish, and if he doesn't, he's on the bench, and you know he's not a part of the future.
I don't back away from it until the end of the season.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah,
I think
you got to know.
He gets an everyday... I do not feel this way about Jordan Walker. To me, as we mentioned earlier today, and if you missed our conversation, and it goes beyond that to me. To me, Jordan Walker gets the next 2 years. He's 23 years old now, I think, this year. I want to see what it looks like with everyday at-bats over the next couple of seasons. Just let's see it. He is not the reason you're going to win or lose games. If you lose games, it's because the middle of the order isn't hitting. It's because your rotation's no good, all of these different things. Jordan Walker needs to be out there every single day for the next 2 years. This is the year for Nolan Gorman. You've got to find out where he's at, and if it's not going to work, cool. That's fine. You can adjust accordingly. You've got internal options that can replace him starting next season, but this is the year I've got to find out one way or the other. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Believe it or not, coming up next.
Don't get lulled into believing the IRS is getting soft. It's just the opposite. Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. We are being told by IRS collection officers that their higher-ups are demanding that they get more aggressive than ever. So don't ignore them any longer. Level up. If you have unfiled returns, unpaid taxes, levies, or liens, call the Lance Story Law Firm today and let us get between you and the IRS. We'll protect your rights, including your right to appeal or even your right to take the IRS to tax court. Remember, IRS problems are legal problems, and they need to be handled by an expert attorney team who's done it for decades. So call the Lance Story Law Firm today. We're local. Our office is right here in St. Louis, or visit Lance, D-R-U-R-Y, law.com to schedule your free consultation with your local tax resolution law firm, the Lance Story Law Firm, 314-260-6120.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Jamie Rivers here, and I'm with Katie from Elite Heating and Cooling, and people can trust Elite.
We did just earn the BBB Torch Award for ethics. You've got to trust the people that are in your home, not just with your equipment, but with the indoor air quality and the quality of your home.
And that's great customer service, and that's what they get over there at Elite.
If you have a problem and there's a situation that needs to either be a repair or replacement, we're going to go through those thoroughly so that you understand everything that needs to be done.
So please give them a call, book an appointment at EliteComfortExperts.com.
Make this good, unlike the Cardinals offense,
Brandon,
please.
don't go high pitch.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free. We're flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
Oh, yeah. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this one. Alex, I got big mad earlier today. There was a list on The Athletic, which typically makes you upset. Today it made me upset.
Hallelujah. Welcome to the camp, buddy.
Believe it or not, Eli Drinkwitz is a top 25 coach in college football.
Oh, believe it. I saw that list, and I totally agree with your anger.
Yeah, I believe it too. He's a top 25 coach. I don't know where exactly I would put him. Clearly not ahead of Bielema, who
Maybe
made the
ahead
list
of Rhett
already.
Lashley at SMU.
Hey,
They
SMU
made
had
the
a great
playoff?
year, man. They had a
Maybe
great
ahead
year.
of Kirk Ferentz, who runs a 1960s offense at Iowa. Maybe ahead of Jeff Monken at Army. Maybe ahead of Brett Bielema at Illinois.
Well, absolutely better than Brett
Bielema
Bielema.
reaches his expectations, unlike that Drinkwitz guy who's just a recruiter, not a winner.
What, double digits in back-to-back years? That met expectations for Eli Drinkwitz.
He didn't make the
Maybe ahead of
playoff.
Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia.
Yeah, I didn't get that one. I got no retort to that
It's a great
one.
name.
I wanted you to say
Lincoln Riley at USC.
Bielema didn't even make the playoffs either, okay? So just chill out over there.
we weren't in our all year nothing. That's this year.
No, you were. You lost your best wide receiver.
If you don't think he's a top 10 coach in college football, that is more than fair. Top 25?
What about top 20? Do I have to put him in the top 20?
Just somewhere in the top 20.
Okay.
If you're going to make a top 25 list, he should be on it. I think it's absurd that he's not. So I'm going to believe it. He's a top 25 coach in college football. I cannot believe that they left him off this list. Alex, what do you got for us
Guys,
today?
we said with 17 games left, we expect Jordan Binnington to play around 12. Believe it or not, Binnington finishes the year with 30 wins.
Ooh, where's he at
He's
right
at
now?
20 right now.
30 wins? I'm going to not believe that. 30, so he needs 10 in the next 17 games? That's a lot. He's probably starting 14 of them. Or 13 of
12, I think is what I said, but yeah, 12 or 13.
10 and 2?
And they do kind of need that kind of a run.
We said that it's the kind of run that they need. By the way, that would only be the second time he's won 30 games in his career.
He's 20-20-4 on the season.
2020 vision, baby.
That's not what you want the rest of the way.
By the way, since the
500 winning percentage,
since-
which gives him like 6 more wins.
Since the Four Nations tournament of teams of goalies that have started 5 or more games, he's got the third best save percentage.
He's been great. I just don't think that 10 wins the rest of the way is realistic.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say not believe it. 10 feels like a lot. And I know that means that then every loss that he gets that doesn't get him close to that 10 win mark, you need Hofer to make up for if he's in the net. I'm going to say not believe it. That 10 is a ton to make up at this point.
I'm believing it. I think he gets it. I think he goes on that type of run down the stretch. I think he goes like 10 and 2. Yeah, I think he goes like 10 and 2 and he gets to the 30 wins.
T-Bone?
Guys, believe it or not, I'm glad you went this
Suck it,
route with
Jesse.
the Blues. Believe it or not, Jimmy Snuggerud will play in a playoff game with the St. Louis Blues this year.
I'm going to say
I'm believing
not because I don't think they're making the playoffs.
God, yes. No. This is good. He believes that. He believes
I don't think
that.
they're making the playoffs. I think it's just going to take too much for them without Colton Parayko. It's no disrespect to them. I promise you, if they use this as motivation, great.
Oh, they will. It's already going to. I'm going to send it to them after the show.
I don't see it because they lose their number one defenseman. That's too much to make up.
First game of the playoffs, you're going to hear those trumpets go off and Parayko's going to come out of that locker room. Thanks, man. I work on it a lot. I'm believing it. I'm believing it. I think he's going to play at least one game in the regular season, and I think this team makes the playoffs, and I think he's playing in the playoffs.
I'm believing it as well.
Wow.
I think they're a playoff team, man. You and me have flipped roles.
Wow.
God, I love you,
Some
T-Bone.
boss in this building don't yell at me anymore.
BK wants us to not make money.
I think they make the playoffs, and I think Snuggerud's in the lineup when they do it. I think he's taking Joseph's job, and he's going to be a guy that's on their power play.
T-Bone and I are just going to
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. For Believe It or Not, you guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it here on BK and Ferrario. From the 314, guys, believe it or not, SLU will make it to the NCAA tournament. They're looking great right now, up 19-9.
They are looking
halfway
good
through the first half against Davidson. Davidson, 9 points in the first 10 minutes of play. That's not exactly how you wanted to be.
They are bad, but you know the saying, win early, lose late. I'm a little concerned, but...
Did you just make that up?
No, I didn't. I use that in cards all the time. When you win early, you're going to lose all your money at the end of the game, and it's very true.
Oh, okay. I don't know that necessarily applies in basketball unless you're Missouri, where they always get up early and then they find a way to.
Or if you're SLU,
in Vegas, I think it works.
Or if you're SLU, but I'm not going to believe this. You got to run the table to get in, and even then, I still think it's going to be a tough call.
Yeah, I agree. Not going to believe it. They look great here. I mean, Davidson's like even with them. When they get up to the next round, I doubt they win. So I'm going to say not believe it.
I'm not going to believe this either. I think it's just too much to ask. What is it, four straight games that they'd have to win in the A-10 tournament? It's just, it's a lot. They put themselves too far behind the 8 ball. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Believe it or not, Jackson Dart, former quarterback with Ole Miss, will be a first-round selection this year. Jackson Dart will be a first-round selection this year.
I'm going to say not believe it because at the back end, I know there's teams that need a quarterback, but I don't know if teams are going to be willing to draft him first round. I think you see Jackson Dart in the second round, and there's plenty of teams that could take a shot at that.
We do this every year, man, where we're like, there's going to be so many quarterbacks to go in the first round. And a lot of the time, if there are, they go in the top like 15 or so. It doesn't happen as often as we seem to believe, where guys go at that latter portion of the first round, because the teams at the top of the second know they can get that guy in the second round. Yeah. So yeah, there is that fifth-year option, but dude, if your quarterback's good, you typically know it in the first 2 years, and you're going to extend him anyway. So that fifth-year option is not quite as valuable, I think, sometimes as we make it out to be. The teams that are going to potentially take him, Cleveland, the Giants, Tennessee. Maybe you see Vegas do something like that.
I wonder if Pittsburgh tries it, something like that.
They're all at the top of the second round. I don't think you're going to see this. So I'm saying not. I do not believe that Jackson Dart will be a first-round selection.
Yeah, I'm going to say not as well. I think we always get that buzz, as you're saying. And then typically what happens is these guys that are fringe first-round picks end up falling into the second or third round. I was trying to think, there was somebody just recently, like Will 2 or 3 years ago. That's who it was, Levis, where all the buzz was, this guy's a first-round pick. He's probably a late first-round pick. And we looked at it and went, really? Like, he doesn't look like a first-round pick when you look at the tape. And that's what happened. He fell out of the first round, and he was a second rounder. That's what I see for Jackson Dart.
All right, believe it or not, Ottawa misses the playoffs this year, and the Blues send Kyrou Bolduc and a first-round pick for Brady Tkachuk.
Not on both fronts. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs because I don't know if you guys saw this, but the New Jersey Devils have just lost Dougie Hamilton for the rest of the season on top of Jack Hughes.
Dude.
So Ottawa, I think, is going to...
Coaching problem for him.
Probably. Sheldon Keefe, he was a terrible coach, I've heard.
He overworked him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Dougie Hamilton, Jack
don't
Hughes,
overlook the fact that
overwork injuries.
Dougie Hamilton also missed almost all of the season last year when it was a different coach. But yeah, blame Sheldon Keefe. New Jersey's going to fall out of this. I think Ottawa is going to be a easy ticket to the playoffs this year. And even if they did, that's not enough to get Brady Tkachuk from Ottawa.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe this either. I'm not 100% convinced to make the playoffs, but definitely trending in the right way with New Jersey dealing with injuries. And I agree. You're going to need more than Kyrou Bolduc in a first to go get Tkachuk.
And I know Matthew's better, but think of what you had to give up to get Matthew Tkachuk. That was a pending free agent. You're going to have to give up more than just Kyrou, who is not a 100-point player like Huberdeau was. They gave up a number one defenseman in Mackenzie Weegar, who was 50 points and a prospect and a first-round pick. So you're talking a lot if you want Brady Tkachuk in a trade.
All right, last thing here, guys. Believe it or not, I do not think this is going to happen, by the way. Believe it or not, talking about the Brady Tkachuk scenario. Believe it or not, Vlad Guerrero Jr. ends up signing an extension this year with the Toronto Blue Jays. According to Ken Rosenthal, he and the Blue Jays are $50 million apart in present-day value. Now, that's over the course of the entire contract. It's not like a $50 million per year situation. But believe it or not, he ends up getting a deal done and stays in Toronto.
I'm going to say believe it because I think Toronto's going to get desperate enough and throw the money at him so that they lock it down. If I'm him, I'd probably wait it out and let teams start calling, especially for what we talked with Tim Britton a little earlier, what people are going to pay. But I'm going to believe it. I think Toronto's going to get desperate.
I'm going to believe it as well. I think they eventually are like, what are we doing? Like, if you don't keep Vlad Guerrero Jr., what's even the point of any of this?
Yeah, you couldn't get Pete Alonso, so that if you decided to go that route.
You tried Shohei, you tried Alonso, you've tried everything.
Keep your dudes.
And you can't get these superstars to come to Toronto. You have one. You have one there. It is incredibly risky, and it very well may fail. But if you don't do this with Vlad Guerrero Jr., again, what is the point of any of this? So I think they end up getting it done. I think they overpay him to do it. $500 million, they end up giving it to him and say, you're our guy. Let's see if we can build this around you.
I'm not believing it. I don't think they're signing him. I don't think he's a guy you should extend.
I agree with you. I don't think I would necessarily do it. It's way too much money, but for them, what's your alternative?
I get it. I mean, they'll probably go into their rebuild. I think that's where they're going. I don't think they're extending him. Like, if Bichette ends up having a bounce back year, their money is more wise spent on Bichette than it is on Guerrero. And I think that's where they are now. I'm not saying Bichette bounces back and they extend him. I just think they're looking at Guerrero going, dude, we don't value your position. You continue to fluctuate between a superstar and a star, good player for us. I don't think they're going to give him the money. I think they're going to tell him to go to the market if he's not going to come down that $50 million.
He's T-Bone, that's Alex, I'm BK. Coming up next, our friend, Blues analyst Joey Vitale joins us here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, with puck drop at 6 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. Cardinals in spring action right now as they are tied with the Houston Astros at 1 apiece through 6 innings. Cardinals made news today as they signed Phil Maton to a 1-year, $2 million deal, and they optioned Gordon Graceffo to the minor league camp. And SLU in action right now in the A-10 tournament, and they lead Davidson 31-22. This Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and, of course, FanDuel Sports Midwest. He is Joey Vitale, joining us as he does each and every Thursday here on the show. Joe, we appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
Joey! Back in Pittsburgh to see the Joey Vitale belt.
I'm back, boys. It's good to be back. How you doing?
Doing great. Are you going to check out a Permante's but while you're out there?
I just thought to myself, I don't hate myself that much to step in that building and take down one of those right now. There's been days where I have, but not today.
Are you somebody, what is it that they do? They put the fries on the salad as well? Is that a Pittsburgh thing?
Yeah, they don't allow you to eat the sandwich without the fries on it. I'll never forget, I was there. My first time there, I was with Brooks Orpik and a couple other young guys, Eric Tangrady, Dustin Jeffrey, and it was kind of post-camp. We got through camp. Everyone wants to celebrate, and a group of guys, let's go to Permanente Brothers and just, scourge our faces because it's been months of agony of trying to make weight and cut down our body fat. All the tests were done. So we went down there. I'll never forget Brooks Orpik, who, he was ahead of his time. He was a guy that, you look at all these players now with the hydration and the supplements and, just dialed in with just eating everything organic and whole foods. He was doing this 20 years ago when everyone kind of thought he was a fool. He'd show up at these team meals and, all these players, Sid and Letang, and all these guys are just filling their plates like mile high of pasta and meat sauce and thinking that was the right thing to do. And Brooks would have steak and broccoli and has side stuff of all kinds of different supplements and powders. And we always make fun of him. But we went to Permanente Brothers one day, and he said, I'll take a pastrami, or he ordered some sort of meat sandwich. But he's like, I don't need the fries. I don't need the sauerkraut. I don't need just like the meat and the cheese. And the guy looked at him like he had 3 heads, and he goes, sir, this is Permanente Brothers. We have to put fries on a sandwich. He's like, no. He goes, I'll pay for it, but I just don't want it on my sandwich. You just put it on the side if you want. And he said, sir, this is Permanente Brothers. We don't give you sandwiches without fries on it. And then there was a guy down the bar, and he goes, hey, Jimmy. He had the New York or Chicago. I say, Jimmy, that's Brooks Orpik from the Pens. Give him what he wants. And he said, I don't care who it is. We don't serve sandwiches without fries on our sandwiches. So, of course, the guy brought out it, and Brooks, sure enough, takes off the bread, just unloads on all the fries, moves them to the side, and the guy had a nice little smile. We had a good laugh about it a little bit later, and to this day, I look at Permanente Brothers. I'll never forget that.
I guarantee if Sidney Crosby asked for that, they would have taken it off for him, right?
I don't think so. I mean, this guy was dialed in. This was a lifer. You go to those old diners where you go to these small towns.
Those old school Italian places.
Yeah. You just the guy at the front, the old lady at the front. She looks like she's like 90. She's been there for probably 140 years. She was probably born in the back, raised in the back, and then of course started working there. He had that in his system, and he wasn't going to budge. He didn't care who it was, and I respect him for that. And of course, it was a good laugh all these years later.
Have you ever been to Gates Barbecue in KC, Joey?
Is that where they yell at you?
Yeah.
I've never been there. No, I've heard things about this, though. Is this where they throw the rolls at you?
No,
that's Lambert's. That place is a danger zone.
This place,
Lambert's is great.
You walk in the door, and there's a lady out at the front at the cash register that immediately, upon you walking through the door, says, "How may I help you?" And it is the most intimidating thing that you have ever heard in your life, and she is ready to go take your order in that moment. And if you don't know, you better step aside and honestly get out of the restaurant.
They keep yelling, "How may I help you?" until you order, and every 2 seconds they'll yell it at you.
It is intimidating as hell, but it's one of those things. It's one of those restaurants where it's like, hey,
we do it one way. Yep, we do it one way.
Any press is good press, as we all know. I mean, even the fact that now we're still talking about it, and the local establishment, BK, that reminds me a little bit about that. I think you guys ever been to Carl's Drive-In over there off Manchester.
Sure.
one of the best smash burgers in all of St. Louis, but it comes with the price. I mean, those ladies that work there, I mean, they're sometimes having the worst days ever. Maybe just a good day, but they are so rude. I'll leave them a $20 tip for a $5 burger. They don't even say thanks. It's actually a part of. I think it's actually a part of their shtick now, where they just. And I don't think it meant like you go to Ed DeBevick in Chicago. Like the theme is we're going to be rude and be funny about it. You know. You ever go to Primetime in Hollywood Studios down in Disney? Yep. And Alex, you may have been down there. It's, You know, your elbows are on the table. Mama comes out from the kitchen, makes you want to do dishes, or you got to stand up and do chores in the side, and everyone laughs at you. I don't know if Carl's, it's like the thing. I think it's just they're just naturally just in a bad mood all the time. But it's kind of a part of the experience of getting a great smash burger and not getting a smile along the way.
All right, Joe, let's talk a little bit about these Blues. They deserve the attention. They've been playing great hockey lately. It's a tough task, man. They don't have Colton Parayko for the rest of the regular season. They're right there, though, for a playoff spot. We saw them play 2 games without Parayko over the weekend, and mostly they played pretty well, I would say. What do you feel like we learned about the way that the Blues are going to have to play without him down the stretch if this team's going to be able to make it into the playoffs?
Well, you're going to need superb goaltending. That's clear. You're going to need Binnington to continue to go on the run that he's going on. I thought Joel Hofer looked really good the other day as well. That's number one. You know, the other thing, too, it's you just can't afford really any of these forward lines to drop off. You know, I think the D are set. I think the D know what to expect. I mean, they are what they are, right? They got guys with over 1,000 games back there. Cam Fowler's back in the lineup, which is going to be a huge help. As he welcomed his second baby to the world. So that was a kind of a tricky game to get through. They end up, squeezing one out and getting a point in that game. But now, to me, it's the forwards, because the forwards are generating the defense right now. I mean, they have 4 lines that each line has kind of their own set of identities, but the one consistent identity, all 4 lines rather, has been the responsibility in the offensive zone of keeping a guy high, about when they're checking on the forecheck, you're staying on the defensive side. Those are the things that lead to good defense. Good defense starts in the offensive zone when you're doing those fundamental things. And I think right now for that WTF line, especially that third line, defensively it is just so structured and so good right now where, you're looking at the Kings, you're looking at the Ducks, even the Capitals a couple weeks ago. It's a lifeless opponent where they just feel like they can't get anything going because they're just running into bodies in their zone, or their defense, whether it be Carlson for Washington. He just tried getting up in the rush all game long, couldn't do it. Drew Doughty for the LA Kings tried getting up in the rush all game long, couldn't do it. Someone's in his way. I think that they're playing this kind of tight, stingy, someone is just always in a path of where someone's trying to go. That, to me, is what's going to have to stay very consistent if they want to continue this run with, of course, their most consistent, probably best hockey player outside the goaltender this year in Colton Parayko.
Joe, take us into the mind of a hockey player, because we saw this in December of the amount of games that they had to play in such a small window. Tonight starts a stretch of playing 10 games in 17 days. How difficult is this stretch for this group of players?
Alex, I've been trying to get out of my mindset of a hockey player for the last 12 years.
It's impossible. You were a golden one, man.
I'm in therapy 3 days a week to try to get out of the mind of a hockey player. Now you keep putting me back into the mind of a hockey player. I don't want to. For fans out there, you don't want to be in the mind of a hockey player. Stay the heck away. It's no good. You'll end up putting spaghetti on your scrambled eggs because you're superstitious, and it's just not good. It's not a good place to be. But in all seriousness, it's a lot of hockey. It is a good time of the year, though, and it was going to be a lot of hockey, whether they were in the hunt or they were out of the hunt. And the fact that they are so in the hunt right now, this is an exciting time. It is a lot of games. You're going to have to manage your rest. Jim Montgomery is really going to be tested here these next couple weeks. I mean, because this reality we're looking at the stretch of the season, that are they going to continue to push forward and make a splash, or are they going to fall off and kind of level out? And I think without Colton Parayko, Jim's job is going to be tough. Managing the bench, managing the emotions, managing the personalities. This is where he is. We're going to find out what type of head coach he really is, and if he can get this group going and staying consistent with some missing bodies that are, of course, going to be there. I say a balanced attack because you can't be loading up on your top guys too much. This is a lot of hockey coming up where you're going to need everyone. And I kind of go back to my original answer there when BK asked about what needs to stay consistent. It's got to be the consistency from everyone. Everyone's got to be pushing. Everyone's got to be earning ice time. You can't have Nick Leddy and Cam Fowler tonight eating up 25, 26 minutes. You got a tough back-to-back coming up this weekend at Minnesota, and then an Anaheim team that it's very tough to beat an Anaheim team as much as they have lately. At some point it's going to give. on a very tight back-to-back with limited rest because it's an earlier game on Sunday. So a balanced attack, it's got to be limited minutes for everyone across the board, a balanced minutes, and you got to have everyone along the way because with this much hockey, rest is going to be super important. We're not talking about a stretch like this, Alex, in October. You have the energy, you have the enthusiasm, you have the giddy up to go. Luckily, the Blues are in the hunt, so that's going to be a help. But this is still a very tired, beat-up hockey team that has been playing playoff hockey here since the Four Nations break. So managing that and managing your health is going to be super crucial here.
Saturday marks 1 month until the end of the regular season. Well, 1 month left of this thing, and that's all they've got. Joey Vitale is going to be on the call for right here on 101 ESPN starting tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are on the road at Pittsburgh. Alex has pregame starting at 5. Joey's got the puck drop with Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, at 6 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. Joe, looking forward to the call tonight. Enjoy yourself out there in Pittsburgh. We'll talk with you again soon, my man.
Hey, sounds good, boys. And, for all you fans out there, buckle up. It's going to be a fun little stretch here. I'm looking at Vancouver and Calgary, and I just like our Blues' chances. I'm not a big guy about predictions, but this is a team that is built for playoffs, so it should be fun down the stretch here.
Absolutely. That's Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every Thursday. Appreciate his time, as always, here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, how do you feel about fries on your salad?
On the salad? Hell no.
The sandwich is really
good. The sandwich I love. I was a big Man versus Food guy when it was on the Travel Channel, and Adam Richman used to watch it all the time, and that was one of the spots that I've told Katie, whenever we can travel when we're older, I want to go to Pittsburgh and try Primanti Brothers. Love me some fries on my sandwich. On salad, absolutely not.
We've got some friends that are up there in Pittsburgh. We go out there typically once every year or two. Went up there a couple of years ago. That was when the bridge, of course, was covered as I went to the Pirates game.
Yeah. I forgot he BKO'd the bridge.
Yeah. The Clemente Bridge, it had a tarp.
There were so many BKOs when I made my open that I had to pick the best.
Yeah, we're going out there again in May.
The bridge will be closed in May. Sorry, Pittsburgh.
It'll be good to go. It's going to suddenly be
Pittsburgh. It's going to go under construction in May.
Their football field is the one that ends up going. It's a spoiler alert. Their football field is the one that falls into the earth. That's going to be what happens.
Not
when
only
I go
are
out
you
there
getting rid of a bridge, you're spoiling now great movies.
You just spoiled a movie, man.
I just ruined Dark Knight for people 10 years in the making.
You got the movie wrong.
He totally got the movie wrong.
Dark Knight Rises. Come on, can we get it right?
Dark Knight was Heath
Dark
Ledger.
Knight's a separate movie, okay?
Yeah, I apologize.
God.
The third one in the trilogy, not the second.
I will never forget going to see Dark Knight when it premiered and standing in line watching people walk around dressed up like the Joker and Batman, and I'm like, what is happening right now?
All right, he's Alex's T-Bone on BK. We'll hit the rewind coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard off of Chippewa, which is officially open. And perfect timing when you got 70-degree weather outside. I took the girls to the park a couple of days ago just to get out of the house, enjoy the sun. And while we were out, I said, why not drive down to Chippewa and get some Ted Drew's frozen custard? They love when Daddy decides to do it because it's just like a vacation for them. So start building those traditions. I used to do it when I was a kid with my parents, and now I get to do it with my wife and my 3 girls. Go to Ted Drew's on a Friday. In this case, we went on a Tuesday, and we just get to go out and enjoy ourselves. You see tons of people sitting in the back of their minivans, sitting on the side of the parking lot next to Ted Drew's and just enjoying the time together with that frozen custard. 4 generations of families have been serving St. Louisans that famous frozen custard, so it's time for you to get out there today. This weekend, schedule it with your family and friends. And while you're there, walk across the parking lot, check out the gift shop, Ted Drew's apparel, Ted Drew's souvenirs, Ted Drew's gift cards, all of them for you at their gift shop. Get on out there, Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
101 ESPN app is super easy to use, and it is free to download. It is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. You can always check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. We finished the show today by looking back at the biggest stories of the day. First of all, the Cardinals did actually add to their Major League roster. First time they have done so all offseason, they signed Phil Maton, a 1-year, $2 million contract. The corresponding move, they sent down Gordon Graceffo, so he's going to begin the year in AAA. The expectation is that he will be a part of their rotation. Alex, what did you make of this signing? Did you like it?
It was fine. I didn't dislike it. I didn't like it. I think it's a lateral move. You brought in another arm to bolster your bullpen. That's great. Frankly, I don't know if you really needed it, but time will tell throughout the season. It's a 1-year, $2 million deal, and it's just a guy that's going to slide right into the middle of your bullpen. He's not high leverage, although I guess from what Tim Britton told us, you can use him in high leverage roles. I think this is a Cardinals-y signing.
I think it's good. I have zero issues with this signing. I think for people that are upset by it, I think it has more to do with what the team already was than what this move represents. I don't know how you can be mad about them not having Gordon Graceffo in their bullpen. Would I like to find out what Gordon Graceffo is? Sure. But if they still believe that he can be a starting pitcher, then just leave him in AAA and let him develop as a starting pitcher. And guess what? There's probably going to be some injuries over the course of the year. You get into June, there's an injury to one of your right-handed relievers, very likely going to happen, and you no longer feel good about him as a starting pitcher, then boom, transition him to the bullpen, and you're back where you are right now. It just happened 3 months later, which doesn't really cost you anything. So I have no issues with it, and in fact, I really like the move. It allows you the opportunity in the first month of the season to give yourself the best chance possible. I don't know if this team's going to be good or not. I think most bets would probably be against them. They would short the Cardinals' likelihood of making it to the playoffs or something. But the first month is where they can potentially get fans back on board, and it requires you to be very good very early on. You're not going to do that if you don't have the right pieces here. This allows you to have one of those pieces that opens up the possibility. He can also be a trade asset for you at the deadline. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think the signing's fine. I think when you take a look at it, he helps the bullpen, and I think they needed a veteran back there because clearly they got so many young arms. Some of these guys probably aren't ready to take over that 7th inning role because I think he's going to platoon that with JoJo. Fernandez is your 8th inning, and then Helsley's your 9th inning. And I said this before, and I understand some of the frustration on Graceffo because he looked good at times in spring. He got roughed up in his last outing. It's okay to have him stretch out as a starter right now in the minor leagues, be the 7th guy that you rely on if you need to go that far into your depth. You can always transition him back to the bullpen. And when we talked about this youth movement at the beginning of the season, the bullpen's not where I cared where it happened. It was more about the lineup, and it was more about the starting rotation.
Cardinals offense has not done well today. It's been a consistent
hit since we
theme.
talked about it?
Nope. They have 2 hits today. They're in the bottom of the 8th inning. So through 8 offensively, they have 2 hits as a whole. Both of them were triples. Ivan Herrera had 1. Newport had the other. They're tied at 1 with the Houston Astros thus far. Blues back in action this evening. We just talked to Joey about that. Game starts at 6. Puck drop at 6. Alex will have pregame coverage beginning at 5. It's an early start for Alex here today. I know you're loving that. What are you looking for in this one, Alex?
Honestly, what Joey told us, consistency. Consistency from the forwards, consistency from the defensemen. How this team is going to have success is basically this group of 21 skaters not missing a step on the ice. You know that Binnington's going to be great for you. Does everyone else play into the system that's been really good? I will say Pittsburgh's been playing some decent hockey. They just beat Minnesota and Vegas. So this feels like one of those trap games where you were off for 3-4 days. Pittsburgh's played a couple of tough opponents. You're going to have to go in there and be ready with a team like Pittsburgh and Sidney Crosby.
SLU is in action right now. They got off to a really hot start. They have struggled a bit since. They're up 36-31 at the half against Davidson. Got to win basically the next 4 days in order to make it into the NCAA tournament. There's no other way around it. In the SEC tournament, Mizzou is in action this evening. They're going to be going up against Mississippi State. I believe it's a 3.5-point line in favor of Mizzou. I do think they'll win this one, but set aside the score of this thing. just give me some good vibes. Allow me to feel good about the way that you're playing again. Get some stops, please. Find a way to stop them from driving to the lane.
Defense.
Win 50-50 balls. Look like the team that I saw you be for 80% of the season. They have not been that team in a while. I want to see them get back to their winning ways, but more importantly, get back to playing the style of basketball that we've seen from them most of the season. Illinois beat the hell out of Iowa a couple of weeks ago. They're a 10.5-point favorite against the Hawkeyes tonight. How you feeling about your Illini going into this one, T-Bone?
I'm feeling good. I mean, they've played really well. Not just the last time they played Iowa, but they finished the regular season with 2 top 25 wins. I feel pretty good about tonight. I am a little concerned it could become a trap game because, we beat them by 20 last time. They got their kryptonite in Maryland in the next round if they win, but I think they'll take care of business.
If Illinois and Mizzou win, they very likely will end up being right on that 6-seed line. Illinois and Mizzou, if they win in their next round as well, you could be battling for a 5-seed. After that, I don't know that there's a whole lot more upward mobility. It's really, what do the next 2 games look like for these teams? If they lose today, they're probably both 7 seeds. Win and lose in the next round, probably end up as a 6. And then potentially, if you win a couple of rounds in your tournament, you could get up to that 5-seed. Illinois more likely to do that than Mizzou, but that's kind of what you're looking at. Somewhere between a 5 and a 7 seed. It's all at stake over the next couple of days in the SEC and Big Ten tournaments. Coming up next Sunday, it's Selection Sunday. Get signed up right now to play in this year's Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Free to enter. The winner's taking home a $250 Amazon gift card and a 101 ESPN prize pack. You can get all of the rules and the details at 101ESPN.com. Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge is refreshed by Bud Light. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next here on 101 ESPN.